all hands are on deck to move closer and closer to achieving this goal. And that is why, distinguished guests from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you with utmost delight to this exclusive high-level roundtable on impact investment. And this is a precursor to the 2025 Africa Impact Summit. Now, this event aims to bring together diverse stakeholders from across the impact investment landscape, showcase the achievements so far within the local ecosystem, and above all, foster knowledge, exchange, and strategic collaboration. Before I move further, I would like for you to look at the person sitting right beside you and just say, wow. Look at the person sitting beside you with confidence and say, wow. So who can guess what comes next after wow? You look good. So let's try that. So say, wow, you look amazing. Give somebody a beautiful compliment. Compliment their smile, their outfit, what they're wearing. Come on, we can do that. Thank you so much. It was looking so tense in here and I just had to break the ice. All right, distinguished ladies and gentlemen from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce myself in case you're wondering who it is standing in front of you this morning. My name is Blessings Musugu. I'm a broadcast journalist and I am an events compere. And it is my absolute delight to be standing in front of you this morning as the compere for this event. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting much time and with respect for our beloved country, Nigeria, I'd like for us to please be upstanding as we take the national anthem. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please, you may be seated. Honorable guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, I'd like us to take some house rules, some housekeeping rules. Now, I'd just like to inform you that in case of evacuation, do well to listen to the evacuation plan via a public address system. I'm sure that we would not have need for that, but just in case of evacuation, do well to listen to the plans via a public address system. Also, if there is anyone who is with anything right now, and I'm sure that we're all with our belongings, please do well to hold it tight. So if you're with your friend, hold your friend tight so that you don't go missing. If you're with your siblings, hold them tight. But if you're with any personal belongings, please hold them tight so they don't get missing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting much time, would like to proceed. And I'd like to ask that we please look in front of us. We'll see on the tables the event agenda, and then there is a code there. So do well to scan the code so you know what to expect for the event. Now, I'd like to let you know that in the course of this event, we'll be having fireside chat, very, very powerful fireside chat, panel discussions, the Impact Fund Showcase, and subsequently, brunch, and my favorite part of any event, the networking session. So please be open-minded. This is about to be a power-packed event. Without wasting much time, would like to take the welcome remarks. And to take us through the first welcome remark is the esteemed and illustrious one who has graciously ensured the implementation of Impact Investors Foundation's vision and strategies, and also coordinated several projects till date. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome up stage at this moment the illustrious Miss Etemore Glover, the CEO, Impact Investors Foundation. Come on, give me a 10-10 energy for the clap. Keep the applause coming as she comes up stage. Miss Etemore Glover, ladies and gentlemen.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me not observe protocols, but let me recognize a few individuals who are here. And I don't want to take it for granted, because each time we call on them, they come. We don't take it for granted. Everybody's time is so important. We are all distinguished guests, but let me first recognize the chair of the Impact Investors Foundation, Mr. Frank Aigbogun. Mr. Frank Aigbogun, thank you so much. I also want to recognize members of the board of the Impact Investors Foundation. They've been working with us so tirelessly from day one. Mrs. Uwa Osaobo, thank you. Thank you so much for your work. I'd like to recognize the chairperson of the Nigerian National Advisory Board for Impact Investment, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, who is also the vice chair of GSG Impact Global. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Members of the Nigerian National Advisory Board who are here with us too, Mr. Aguche Aguda, thank you. I'm not seeing other members of the National Advisory Board, but I know that we've got confirmations of members who will be joining us here physically. I want to recognize one special person. He was the former chair of the Impact Investors Foundation. Very humble, very kind. My mentor and a friend, Mr. Oladele, Engineer Afolabi Oladele. Seated here are friends, family members, I can now say, who have been supporting us. But before I go into that, one very important person who I met while she was in UNDP, but she's now the global CEO of the GSG Impact, Elizabeth. Good morning. For most of you here who know so much about what we do, and for those who are joining us here for the very first time, the Impact Investors Foundation is a non-profit organization, and we have been established to accelerate the growth and excellence of impact investment in Nigeria. We work in building the impact economy in the country, and we address solutions at several levels. One, at policy. Policy is so important to enable us build a strong market infrastructure where we can unlock capital for more impactful investment in Nigeria. And we've been working and partnering with government. We have a champion partner in government, the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, who had been working with us from day one. They set up 14 ministries, departments, and agencies to hold hands with us in establishing the $1 billion fund of funds, with a first close of 100 million And Kuramo Capital is managing that. I just want to recognize Kuramo Capital, represented here by Labi Williams. Thank you for your belief. Thank you for your partnership. Even before you were selected through a very rigorous process to manage the fund for us. You've believed in impact investment. We've seen you shift, particularly with the creation of Moremi Fund. I want to say thank you, and we're glad you're doing this with us. So, policy I was mentioning is one of the areas that we want to see more capital unlocked, particularly from institutional investors like pension funds. Pension funds can do a lot if we can get a certain percentage of pension funds to be deployed for impact investment and other alternative assets like private equity that can grow our market. On the intermediary side, we believe that if we have a strong intermediary ecosystem with first-time fund managers, with more advanced fund managers who can deploy several kinds of financial instruments, who have a stronger space where money can move at the speed and velocities that is required for the Nigerian market. So working with Kuramo, we have an accelerator program where we will train and support first-time emerging fund managers, who also will support other more advanced fund managers to deploy capital to the frontline social enterprises and MSMEs who require these funds. On the investment readiness side, we intend to build a pipeline of investment-ready businesses who will receive this money and then use this money to make more impact. Then on the finance side, we want to see a proliferation of innovative financial vehicles for our market. We are starting with the Wholesale Impact Investment Fund, but we do not desire that the Wholesale Impact Investment Fund will be the only fund for the market. So what are we saying? Please join forces with us. Wherever you see yourself sitting any of this value chain, work with us. And it's also important to mention the one thing that is so, I won't say it's an abundance in our market, is lack of data, lack of research. We need research to inform policy so we can have better policies. We need research for better asset allocation. We need research to commercialization, research to impact, research to solve solutions, whether it's in healthcare, education, agriculture. But you cannot do it on your own. So we set up a Nigerian Impact Investment and Research Collaborative that brings together the market, industry, researchers, consultants together to innovate, to ideate, and to use research to solve our problems. So we'd like to invite you to please join us. On the enterprise side, we've brought together a group of enterprise support organizations, a collaborative, and their role is to build a pipeline of investment-ready MSMEs. So we are training them. They are small businesses themselves. We are training them through a skilled program, and to ensure that there is quality and consistency in the kinds of support ESO give to enterprises. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a lot we're doing. It is a marathon. We can't do it on our own. I'd like to use this opportunity to invite you to join us on this journey for a greater Nigeria, for a transformative Nigeria. I'd like to end with inviting you to the Africa Impact Summit taking place in Accra. While today we're looking at our market, we'd like to whet your appetite to see the opportunities that exist in the Nigerian market. But the conversation is about transforming systems, redefining impact for real change in Africa. It's time for us to take actions. It's time for us to walk the talk. So let's move away from just talking alone, but let's design practical solutions for the transformation of systems in Africa. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to day one of the study tour. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we can do better with the applause. Miss Itemore Glover, ladies and gentlemen. And it truly is a marathon, like she said, and all hands need to be on deck. And need I remind you that you're also invited to attend the Africa Impact Summit 2025. Now, still on welcome remarks and opening address, taking us through the opening address is none other than the Executive Director, MBC Africa, and founding member, Impact Investing Ghana. And this is the remarkable Miss Anna Samake. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Miss Anna Samake as she comes on stage. Keep the applause coming.
Thank you very much. Wow, I'm a bit short, eh? Not sure you see me. Do you now? Okay. Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests, partners. I'm very happy to be with you this morning. So my name is Tenemba Anna Samake. I'm Executive Director of MBC Africa. MBC Africa is an ESO in Ghana that supports innovations, entrepreneurs, and SMEs in agribusiness, mostly on specific agricultural value chains. When we started in Ghana, MBC Africa was already thinking about how we can rally local funding, for example, to invest in agriculture because it's perceived risk in that industry. So when Hamdia called me and wanted to start Impact Investing Ghana, I came running because I believe that's the only way we're going to achieve this. It's through collaboration and cooperation among ourselves. So this morning, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to co-welcome you to the next Africa Impact Investing Summit happening in Ghana this year. I think it's in a couple of days. A pleasure for me to have you in Accra. But as my colleague said before, we have to understand that nobody's going to do this for us. We're going to do this for ourselves. And the only way is to find and share vision and specifically a plan to make it happen. As she says, no more talking. We want action. How this action is going to happen is what we're going to discuss this year in Accra. And I hope to see all of you there. Again, welcome to Africa Impact Investing Summit 2025.
Again, we can do better with the applause. Miss Anna Samake, ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Director, MBC Africa, and founding member, Impact Investing Ghana. And now to take us further through the program, we'll be having the goodwill remark. And that will be given by the chair, Impact Investors Foundation, Mr. Frank Aigbogun. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Frank Aigbogun. And keep the applause coming till he gets on stage. We can do better.
I think I'd like to stand, as we say in Nigeria, on the protocol that has been established already. But I think I would not be that naive not to acknowledge in our presence this morning the presence of the Managing Director of GSG Global, Elizabeth, who is coming to Nigeria for the very first time. We truly welcome you. While we were in Kyoto, we were told that May was the best month to visit Japan. I hope you find June a good month to be in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, mine is a very muted role this morning. And it is to extend to you a very warm welcome to Lagos and to Nigeria, the commercial capital of Nigeria. Lagos is not only a hub of commerce, but is also a vibrant melting pot of diverse cultures and creativity, and I must say an ideal setting for the study tour to Nigeria before we all head to Accra for the Africa Impact Summit. And so on behalf of the board of Impact Investors Foundation, our partners, stakeholders, and dedicated staff, let me extend my sincere appreciation to each of you for traveling from far and near to join us this morning. At IIF, our mission is clear. We are deliberate, we are unwavering in promoting and institutionalizing a robust culture of impact investing in Nigeria. And that we have done since our inception. We desire to generate measurable, positive social and environmental outcomes that contribute meaningfully to Nigeria's sustainable development. We pursue this mission through our various initiatives, engagements with capital allocators, and active policy advocacy. And part of this engagement is the reason why you are with us this morning. There's truly no better way to understand the potential for impact in Nigeria than to experience it firsthand. And that's why we will be having the study tour following after our session here this morning. I must say that you would find, for those who are able to join on the tour, that this tour and what you will see is a testament to the work that is being done to ensure that we are truly making impact in Nigeria. Of course, I'm a journalist, and so while we were in Japan, one of the things that struck me at the leadership meeting was the whole conversation around measurement. Journalists are by nature very cynical, and we tend to ask, okay, so where's the evidence? And so I took time to engage in understanding the emerging conversation around how a very good structure and process for measuring impact investing and the outcomes can be an all for driving resource allocation in this particular direction. Today at this roundtable, we're privileged to have a diverse and distinguished audience, a true reflection of Nigeria's impact investing ecosystem. In this room are investors, financial intermediaries, impact entrepreneurs, government agencies, regulators, development agencies, enterprise support organizations, and as you would imagine, members of the press as well. And now let me formally take the pleasure in welcoming Ms. Elizabeth Buggs Davidson, CEO of the Global Steering Group on Impact Investing, and her esteemed team to Lagos. Madam, we welcome you once again. The high-level roundtable and the engagements that will follow in the coming days are opportunities to deepen understanding of Nigeria's dynamic and evolving impact investing landscape. I encourage you to participate actively, ask questions where you need to, interrogate assumptions, share insights, and engage meaningfully. Be inspired by the stories you will hear and the innovations you will witness, each one a testament to what capital can achieve when properly deployed. At IIF, we're proud to serve as a convenient platform for visionary partners who believe in the power of business to drive inclusive and sustainable growth. Together, we are not just investing in projects, we are investing in people. We are changing lives. We are changing community across Africa. In closing, I wish to thank all our co-sponsors, all our co-hosts, I must say, particularly Impact Investing Ghana and the African Impact Investing Group, as well as our local partners and sponsors and organizers who have worked tirelessly with us to make this experience possible. Your dedication continues to inspire and energize us. Once again, let me welcome you to Lagos. Let me welcome you to the heart of impact in Nigeria. Thank you very much and welcome.
Please keep clapping. Mr. Frank Aigbogun, Chair, Impact Investors Foundation. Thank you so much for that powerful goodwill remark. Distinguished guests from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen, I did mention earlier that we'll be having some powerful sessions, fireside chat, panel sessions. These will be thought-provoking sessions that I'm sure that we all are looking forward to. But before we do that, let's break the ice a little one more time. Turn to your neighbor and say, wow. Go ahead. Come on, I can't hear the compliments. What comes after wow? Go ahead and compliment somebody. Say nice things about what they're wearing, how they look, how they speak, how they smile. Just something nice. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being so cooperative. So next time when I say, turn to your neighbor and say, wow, don't wait for me. Just go ahead. Are we good? Do we have a deal? Let's try that. All right, turn to your neighbor and say, wow. That's more like it. Thank you so much. All right, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to have the fireside chat. Now, this fireside chat is one that is between two of the most significant voices in the impact investing ecosystem. And this fireside chat will most importantly help us understand the importance of impact investing in advancing sustainable development goals and also the missions of the GSG on impact investing. That said, this session will be moderated by an African entrepreneur, an author, an international leader, and global culture shaper. The chair, GSG Impact Nigeria, partner and vice chair, GSG Impact. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me with thunderous applause as I welcome on stage Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika. It can be louder. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. We can do better. The chair, GSG Impact Nigeria, partner and vice chair, GSG Impact, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika. Keep the applause coming. Come on. You're welcome, ma'am. Now, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika will be moderating this discussion with none other than one who has led a team of environmental, social, impact, and technical assistance experts and has safeguarded environmental and social risk of DFC investment. I'm talking about the Chief Executive Officer, Global Steering Group on Impact Investing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want you to give a Nigerian warm welcome to the one, the only, Miss Elizabeth Boggs Davidson. We can do better, come on. Right now, I'll be handing over to Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika to moderate the session.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, I hope you got a feel for Nigeria.
Oh my goodness.
We have a lot of energy.
I feel like a rock star. It's great.
Yes. You know, we feel like rock stars as a people, so we tend to want to communicate that to other people. And we're happy for those who are curious enough to come to our land to discover who we truly are outside of what TV or radio or anything says about who we are. Anyway, welcome to Nigeria again. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming to the room. And I'm on Elizabeth's side and I'm on the other side, so it's a little hard sometimes to wear two caps in the same sitting. So we're on the same team as GSG Global, and yet, you know, at this point, I'm also Nigeria GSG partner, Nigeria chair, so that allows me to try and come from both sides. So I think the first thing my people will be curious about is to meet you properly. You know, there's been a lot of smiling, a lot of hellos since yesterday, and a lot of wow. Where's the Gen Z people? You know, but much more than that is we know that what we see, there's always a depth that is deeper than what we see. And I know that you in particular come with so much substance from your experience, your background, your journey, and finally to come home to GSG at the later end of last year as our new CEO at the GSG Impact at the global level. So do you want to, in your own way, introduce yourself to the community so that they get a feel of what's exciting about Elizabeth, what's the most profound thing you learn in your journey, what is the most assuring thing that makes impact a key interest for you, and what's the one thing they're not likely to know about you, but that you think would be exciting for them to discover?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. I can't tell you how welcomed I feel in Nigeria. And I genuinely did not know what to expect. I've read about Nollywood. I've listened to some Afrobeats. I've now tried one of the rival rices.
She had some jollof rice last night.
But it's really special for me to be here, particularly because I am accompanied, very well accompanied. What Ibukun did not mention is that I report to her. She is co-chair of my board. And so she's important to me for many different reasons, but she's been an inspiration for so many of us in this space. So who am I? I'll tell you the interesting fact you would not know about me first, maybe. I am married to a Dane that I met in Khartoum, Sudan. So that's unusual.
Yeah.
No. Let me see. Let me tell a little bit about my journey, because it is perhaps a little bit unusual, but it's very connected to where I am today. So I really began my interest in development and development finance back a long time ago. I'm old. I was a graduate student at Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service, and I focused on diplomacy and on development finance, a lot of project finance work. And at that moment in time, the US government paid in a lot of overdue dues to the United Nations as I was graduating about the year before. And all of a sudden, it became an opportunity for a young American to enter the United Nations, which had not been possible, really, due to indebtedness and other things. And so rather than joining the government, which is what I had positioned myself with the School of Foreign Service, I decided to join a leadership program at the UN Development Program. And it really did change my outlook and really my life as I met my husband in Khartoum. But it was the beginning of quite an interesting experience and journey, as they say. I started very specifically in development, managing development projects. But then when I left Sudan, I moved to Europe with the UN and covered South and Southeast Asia, so Afghanistan and Pakistan, and Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So I had quite a rich experience. But by the middle of the 90s, I really wanted to go back to Washington, back to development finance, and really back to Latin America, which had been a big focus of my graduate work. And I should have said that my thesis advisor was Madeleine Albright, who went on to become the first female Secretary of State. So she was a huge inspiration for me. So I went back to Washington and I joined the Inter-American Development Bank and ended up spending 20 years in Latin American finance, almost always on the private sector, sort of private sector lending, but I had a bit of a period where I was a policy advisor on environmental and social policy, which was quite quite informative for my work with the UN later and my work here with GSG Impact. And at that time, there were many things that were happening, but microfinance got off the ground when I joined the Inter-American Development Bank. And the inspiration was really from from Asia, from Bangladesh, from India. And we started to lend very specifically in microfinance and provided a lot of the necessary capacity building to enable institutions to become better regulated. I was invited to start up an initiative, what we called Business at the Base of the Pyramid. Again, the inspiration is coming from Asia, from India at this time, and C.K. Prahalad, the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. How can you get companies to invest for both profit and purpose? And so we started building new business models, very much focused on that dynamic of having a social return while also having a very robust commercial return. And this was before impact investing. But impact investing did come along, and when we started the first impact fund in Latin America and Mexico, the foundational sort of understanding for how portfolio companies would operate was really pulling from the models of microfinance. There was not an ability to pay for anything all at once, but if you were to offer that microcredit, the opportunity would be there and the return would certainly be there. So with the advent of impact investing, I joined a fund at the Inter-American Development Bank that was sort of the home of impact investing, and really spent my last 5 years there sort of building out the impact investing portfolio. We had the luxury of having some grant resources to do some of the enterprise support work that's happening here in Africa. We had grant resources to sort of enable some of the first loss that was often important with models that we wanted to really challenge the risk appetite for. But mostly we had straight up investments, and we proved that there was absolutely an opportunity to have very positive social and/or environmental returns and commercial returns for the organization. But I'm almost getting to the end. In 2018, I was invited to join the administrator. He was new at the time of UNDP, where I met some wonderful Nigerians, and the request was, can you help us build more of a business model around the Sustainable Development Goals? There were a number of high-level principles on the market, the principles for responsible investing, but no one really knew how to allocate their capital to the SDGs. And by 2018, they had become the reference point for business and for finance, really, for what it means to be sustainable. Yet, that management tool, that management system was missing. So we really did build out standards, tools, practices to help a fund manager, to help a bond issuer, to help a company really allocate capital in line with the goals. And then the last chapter before this, I was invited while I was enjoying UNDP and traveling like a crazy person. I was asked by the Biden administration to come join this new development finance institution called the Development Finance Corporation, DFC, and to lead the policy office. And for me, it was a really nice opportunity to bring a lot of my investment background, but also my policy background, to work at a brand new American development finance institution. And I did that very happily for nearly 4 years, but the tide was turning, and GSG Impact had an opening for a CEO. And if you've been on the supply side of capital, it was quite intriguing for me to jump into this role to think about the systems building part of impact, the policy levers that need to be changed. And it's, successful impact investing, as this group knows better than most, combines not just the capital, but sort of the whole enabling environment that enables the capital to have that positive impact. So I had gotten to know GSG Impact in its early days through my role at the Inter-American Development Bank, running impact, and then I called on the GSG Impact team across the globe to help push out the standards and sort of inform the market about our new products. So it was a community that I respected for all the right reasons tremendously, but it was also a real opportunity to try something different and something meaningful, I think.
Wow. I learned something from the Gen Zs today. So whenever I say wow, what does that mean? You clap. So the thing is, being part of the process that produced Elizabeth as the CEO of GSG Impact, I can tell you it was not an easy bite at the end to emerge as the CEO. I think we had about 16 very strong candidates for the role. You might never have known how many people were in the process. Yes. So now you know. So that should give the room the comfort, but also you the confidence that at the end, you had the fire and the new season that we wanted for the GSG to move forward. Now let's go to the GSG side of it. Everybody in the room knows the word GSG impact, but they don't necessarily have a full understanding of the vision and the drive. And every time you have a change of leadership at the highest level, like the CEO, there's always a newness that comes into it, because who you are, how you do, will rub off on what you push and how you do it within the framework of the values and the structure of the organization. We do have a very strong board of some amazing people from all around the world. So yes, she has a good support system with that. But explain to the room what the vision of GSG is and where we're going next, and what makes the GSG different from any other organization that is similarly trying to drive what we're doing in terms of impact in the world.
Ibukin can answer this much better than I. But no, the vision...
I think you have to use your mic a little more. We like
Can
the
you hear?
noise.
Can you hear me now? Yes, sorry. Sure. What attracted me to this organization is not only the global reach, but the global vision and mission. And we're really trying to build impact economies across the globe. And no one else is doing this. There's a lot of organizations that are operating on the supply side of capital. The Global Impact Investing Network, the venture philanthropy organizations are very much focused on that supply. We're very much focused on building the necessary infrastructure that you need to unlock impact capital. So looking at the supply of capital, looking at the demand for that capital, looking at the right intermediaries, the market makers, and of course the policy levers. So our ambition, and my ambition in this role, is to make GSG Impact the reference point for impact economies around the globe in a very short amount of time, I hope. But so to do that, what does it mean to create the infrastructure, to create the incentives? Much of that is really to unlock policy. I see here, and I'm so excited to hear about the wholesale impact investing fund that's coming together. But unless and until there's some policy work behind that, the opportunity to unlock that domestic capital is not there. And so much of what we're trying to do is, my ambition is really to make this network as powerful and as effective as it can be. And we're doing that slowly. Today we have 43 national partners. Burkina Faso just became one of our newest partners in the last month. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but this represents about 2/3 of the global population, and more than half of our national partners are now in emerging markets and developing countries. GSG Impact got started out of the G8. So all of the social impact task force, when the UK held the presidency of the G8. So we started very strongly in sort of the developed markets, and we were just in Japan for our global leaders meeting, and that's one of the most spectacular national partners because they really have embedded impact into their development planning, into their national, economic plans. It's been remarkable to see the progress. So our ambition is to continue. My ambition is to really strengthen and enable this network, and that means building out new partners here in Africa and in other places in the world, particularly in Asia as well. It means how do we make sure that the network has what it needs to be effective, and that's in certain instances really trying to leverage resources to be able to have strong, independent secretariats that are navigating these new chapters. We're also trying to develop new policy tools and to advocate effectively with our policy tools. And then the third area that we're quite focused on, and this is a bit of a newer area for us, but is to really enable and to catalyze investment vehicles. What can we do as a global organization to shine a light on investment vehicles that are being originated here by the national chapters for all the right reasons in the global context? And our job is to help crowd in some capital for that, both to help stand up the structures, but also to of course, build out and to see additional investment capital coming into these structures. So I'll stop there and see what else you have to ask me.
Okay. I know Africa is critical to the work that we do at the GSG. And you and I have had side conversations where you said to me, Africa is critical to what you want to do. I also know that we've had a lot of encouragement in that vision as it concerns Africa. Like the Japan government through their own GSG Japan has been extremely supportive. I think right now we have a $3 million fund from them for development of national partners. I think five national partners, 5 new national partners in Africa. Nigeria is not part of it. Well, he just shows, you guys are too big to be getting donations from everywhere. So we've got to get our act together. But the important thing is that building the ecosystem within the continent increases the value for all of us. And so having more national partners within Africa increases the African bucket and allows us to be able to collaborate and build bigger things. So I'd like you to talk about the African vision of the GSG in a sense, and some of the work that we're doing and the focus to help Africa help itself in the course of doing this.
It's true. We have this wonderful opportunity with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Japan to really help support a number of our efforts in Africa. It did not take us off track. We're not doing anything differently. This was our vision and mission, was always to try and enable and support and build up and out the partnerships here in Africa. But with additional resources, we're jump-starting that. In a year, we have an opportunity to really work in Western Africa, where we haven't had much opportunity yet. And so we're certainly working to build out some new partnerships in Côte d'Ivoire, in Senegal. We're trying hard to launch these investment vehicles. It's been, with the change in geopolitics, the need for local solutions and domestic capital has never been more important. And the need for private sector local solutions has never been more important. And so we've been talking about, and it's for all the right reasons, the need to originate domestically enabled investment vehicles that really enable SME finance in particular. And we're seeing that come together and come to fruition in Ghana, and we're seeing that come to fruition in Zambia now. And so this grant that we have with our Japanese resources is really helping with the structuring and enabling some of these vehicles to come to speed up their structuring support. Here in Nigeria, we're not able to use the resources for that, but we're crowding in other capital and other resources to help support our Nigerian partners, and ideally the new wholesale impact investing fund that I personally am quite excited about. But in addition, it's how do we help with some of the collaboration efforts that are very much happening here through our national partners? What can we as a global organization bring to that? I think the beauty of GSG Impact is that we're very global, but we're very local in the sense that we're taking some of the global experiences from how the Dutch unlocked their pensions to put the pension to work for impact. That experience has informed our Ghana experience. And so part of our job is to bring that global to local in ways that are meaningful, as well as the local to global. So some of the research that's ongoing here, we're absolutely wanting to support. The collaboration efforts that are ongoing, we very much want to support. And part of that is the convening and participating in these events and enabling and encouraging different events that are happening throughout the network of 43 different countries. And let's see. I think those are the main efforts for us here in Africa are really to build out the partnerships. So we'd like to see, today we have 6 national partners. A decade from now, I hope we have 3 times that many. It's so important to sort of build out and to have representation across the continent, to be advocating for the impact economies that we're all trying to stand up.
Fantastic. At the GLM, which is the Global Leadership Meeting of all the national partners within the GSG family in Kyoto in May, when we were there, we had a number of task forces from Africa. Those are NABs in waiting. They're building up their team to qualify to be accepted as a national partner into the GSG. And you have quite a few countries from Africa. Part of them are those that the Japanese funding is facilitating the ability to build out Tanzania, Senegal, a few more. The reality at the end of the day is, for us, we need to creatively find our own solutions. It's also why the pension fund is critical, because if we have pools of funds sitting within our ecosystem that can cause tsunamic change, but policy and ways of deploying it has not facilitated that, then the world has changed. Bottom line is, we can't wait for anybody to help us. We have to be innovative, be creative, be global but local, because at the end, we have to find local solutions and we have to build together. That is the real message for all of us. And that's the homework that we have. How do we do this? Within our continent, country working together. I mean, I can tell you proudly that Nigeria and Ghana have been great at collaborating. We have the West African Deal Summit every year, which was started by Nigeria and Ghana. We have the Deal Platform, which was built by Nigeria and Ghana, which allows businesses to go on there to search for investors and for connections to be made. And we have deals that have been consummated on the platform. And I know the reason I'm saying this is because I know this room has a lot of minds who are emotionally invested in creating impact and therefore drive impact investment from different sides of it, but also who have the capacity to create solutions that are local and will change the lives of our people. And for every change, there's always an opportunity for further change, because it allows us to innovate differently because of the last change. So tell me, the next 10 years of this work, what do you see? I like asking people to dream, so if you had a blank check, concerning impact investing, and you had to write your wish list for Africa in particular. I like to talk global, but we're home, and let's focus on our home right now. If you had, what's the magic wand? Yes. And you could just write a list and everything on it will be granted. What would be your wish list for Africa?
Well, for Africa and beyond, my wish list that every country in Africa would have a well-resourced, well-constructed, representative impact organization as part of GSG Impact. I think it's so important to have locally driven organizations that really understand and internalize what the local financing requirements are and what the policy levers are to enable that capital to flow. So if I had that wand, we would really ensure that this network of partners was really expansive here on the continent. I'd also love to see, in every country where we have a partnership, a very strong impact investing vehicle. The fund-to-fund structures I've become quite attached to, because it really enables investment managers across the sectors to be engaged and to be strengthened thereby. So having investment vehicles that are, again, driven by local sources of capital with local currency operating would be a huge wish list as well. And then finally, I'd like to see not only well-run organizations, but organizations that have the necessary foundational understanding, evidence base to be able to understand the market sizing and to be able to make sort of the decisions that's based off of that data and research that Frank was mentioning. It's so important to have the measurement frameworks in place so the transparency is available. So in the perfect world, this would be foundational, that we would all be able to measure, to manage, to report, and to disclose on impact, and there would be no question about the impact that we're having.
Fantastic. Okay. Wow, they told me not to say wow. I was just going to say wow, but anyway, let's go on. I want us to extend the conversation to the room, because the richness of it is in the diversity of our thinking, and I do trust this room that we'll get some engaging questions. So let's allow you to raise your own questions based on everything Elizabeth has shared. What are you thinking? What more would you like to know? And what's that key area you'd like her to give you some more information on?
maybe while you're thinking, there's one thing I've been thinking as I've been sitting here, is that this is a really special time, that there's been an evolution with impact investing that I've been part of, but this is sort of a new moment where we all started this conversation in 2008. There was a financial crisis that sort of demonstrated the flaws in the traditional financing system, and impact investing became the asset class. And then 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals were launched, and they did become sort of that reference point. And then a little bit later, climate finance emerged as sort of 80% of blended finance, and much of impact investing has a climate focus. And then 2025, here we are, where today the world has changed so dramatically in the sense that we have to think very differently about how we solve for the problems, the crises that are expected but very unexpected today, with trade uncertainty and climate and inequality. And I've been thinking that this is such a moment in this evolution, 2025, where Africa is positioned to play such an important role in terms of local capital, local solutions, and private-driven solutions. And so it's not just where impact is interested in investing, it's where solutions are taking off here in a very organic and very necessary way for the times that we're living. So for me, the conversations today and that we're going to have at the summit are really foundational, because I think they will be informing a new strategy that's evolving in 2025 for how we think about investment and how we think about impact investing in particular. So I just thought about that. Thank you.
Well, that gives you a snippet into some of what will be happening in Accra. So make sure you're there so you can be a full part of that conversation. Have you finished thinking about your question? Okay, we'll start from our friend from Ghana.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It was so inspiring. And I was happily saying, wow, because this was a really wow moment when I heard you talking all the process up until today. And especially when you talked about microfinance. So I think we're of same generation. You would say we're old. We're not that old. We just, older than the room, yes? But we were there for the microfinance revolution. And as I said in my keynote, I am on the agric sector, and the perceived risk in that sector. And microfinance was very instrumental in financing rural areas, but it has limits. And one of the things that we're trying to do now is to have another wow moment in innovating in financial instruments, to be able to invest in innovation in that industry, but also the SMEs and so on and so forth. So how do we set up that coalition that we had in microfinance before towards supporting that innovation or those innovations? Because as I said before, I had to come up with solutions to finance people that were going through our incubators, accelerators, because they were not accessing to finance from the local banks or even the rural banks, because for different reasons we're not able to support them. So we became innovators in financial instruments, but we still lack that organized and institutional support towards those innovative solutions. How can we factor that in what we're doing right now? How do you think we can do for those new innovations and what we did for microfinance?
Okay, you want to take the question? Or should we just take a feel of the room, take a few questions, and then, okay, I'll take Chizo, and then I'll come to the gentleman behind. So if you just take a note.
All right, thank you very much. Quite a well presentation.
If we can all please keep it short,
yes,
so that we can have a more diverse conversation.
My name is Dr. Chizo Malize. I'm the Managing Director of Financial Institution Training Center, a Central Bank of Nigeria subsidiary. And I'm very excited about the things that you've done and the way you've plugged it around the world, so that's very remarkable. I would like to know, and so starting from where you were in Africa, so you come with quite a lot of experience about the issues around the continent. We have a lot of these businesses, small businesses that are very capable of catalyzing growth around agriculture, energy, renewable energy, health, and all of that. And then we also have the experiences you've had with all the investments, microfinance, development finance, and all that. Where do you see the problem is with helping the businesses in Africa build, grow, and stabilize? Because all of the impact investment is very necessary, but we also need to see return and stability. And we're not in doubt that those capabilities are there, but from where you see it, what are the things that we should be looking out for? What are the things that are important to you? And lastly, the third, what sort of partnership are you seeking to create the success that you are seeking to align with your goals? Yeah.
Okay. So the gentleman behind.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good morning, everybody. Well done for this session. So I have just two questions.
Just a quick intro.
Okay.
Your name and what you do.
Yes, my name is Shegun Aremu. So I have just two questions. Number one, we have moved from black economy to green economy. Now we're looking at blue economy. So I want to ask, what is it that we can do for impact finance initiative that can attend to blue economy? That's number one. Then number two, now we have capital, supply side, we have demand side. For the demand side, how do you get these firms investment ready? Thank you.
I think your first question was not very clear.
That was about how can we get impact finance to boost blue economy. Thank you.
I think you can answer questions first, and then we'll take the next set of three.
And maybe there's a little bit of connection between the microfinance sort of history and innovation and sort of how do we enable SME to unlock growth. Having worked at a development finance institution where more than 60% of the financing was through intermediaries, and much of that financing in principle was to unlock SME financing, it wasn't very effective. That the banks that were receiving, traditional banks receiving the loans, were not necessarily extending those credits as effectively as they should. And unless there was a really clear strategy in place for how the bank would actually reach small and medium enterprises or women-owned or led enterprises, we realized it wasn't having the effect it should have. So much of what we as a bank at that time and now as GSG Impact sort of thinking outside of the box and trying to unlock through investment vehicles SME finance is that approach doesn't work, right? You have to sort of turn it upside down in the sense that the source of capital is not necessarily to a bank, but the source of capital is to some kind of facility that can on-lend those resources. And the source of the finance ideally is a local source of finance that then anchors other financing coming in. So it's been, and once there's a local source of finance that's anchoring a vehicle, organizations like the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation are very interested in joining that structure because it's different and it signals that the risk has been somehow accounted for in ways that were not there previously. But I think, I'm trying to look at these questions, I think the in terms of partnerships, so much of what needs to happen is not just the supply of capital, identifying a source of capital, but it's how do you create that enabling environment and the capacity that needs to be in place to be able to extend the credit in ways that that the enterprises are able to absorb the credit. And so much of what we've learned in this experience, I think, looking around our partnership where vehicles are happening, unless and until there's some business advisory assistance, enterprise support, organizational support, accelerate the accelerator program in place, the opportunity is not entirely fully recognized or realized. And so part of what we need to do is to ensure that there's some grant capacity, some concessional capital that's very much available to build and enable the businesses and to provide that business advisory support as we're also crowding in the capital to be able to extend the credits. So these, and this is true in the microfinance space, this is where the innovation needs to happen as well. In terms of, it's not just about finance, we know this, it's also about creating that enabling, the advisory sort of systems in place to sort of unlock the capital in ways that are necessary to be successful. the blue economy I'm a little bit stuck with, but in my previous days, some of the structures that were most effective in sort of creating momentum around things like the blue economy were some kind of guarantee structure, some kind of risk-sharing structure, where a party, and typically it would be a government or a government bank, would assume some of that risk that would then unlock opportunities for newer enterprises or blue economy enterprises. So much of this is about risk sharing. How do you sort of navigate structures in ways that give different parties confidence in the overall credit of the operation? So I don't have a perfect answer for this, but so much of what's happened in terms of innovating with finance is not just a direct equity investment or a direct loan. It's somehow creating levels of guarantees that allow different partners to feel comfortable with the structure. So that could be a central bank putting in, a first loss opportunity for. Anyway, this is what I've seen, that the guarantee structures and sort of sharing that risk have been really innovative in unlocking capital in ways that would not otherwise be available.
One of the things we need to understand why we gather is because as we identify all the bottlenecks to our ability to effectively deploy impact funds across the value chain, we realize that we share learnings that helps. When we gather at like the GLM, one country shares what solution they've created that's helped to unlock something. Other countries get a chance to discuss with them. What did you do? Tell us this and all of that. We take their learnings, we take it back and we localize and all of those things. The key thing is there's still so much innovation that needs to take place. And for us, there's still a lot of investment that needs to go into preparing the entrepreneurs to receive. One thing I've realized, the money is there floating in the world. But the system to trap it in and make us the option and also distribute it down the line to create the real impact that we seek, that's on us. It's our problem. We need to innovate the solutions. We need to find how to ensure that enough entrepreneurs are trained, prepared, that they're in the format that you can confidently invest in them in some way. We have to find those solutions. We must find for someone who's been an entrepreneur for 36 years and has had the privilege to also be chair of the largest retail bank in the country or in the region and all of that, I've sat at different ends of the same thing. Banks, the commercial banks are never going to be the solution. It's just not the way they think, nor are they equipped to. And it's a waste of their time in terms of the options they have to turn their money around and make money quickly. So it's to look to that. So when all the money comes from international and goes into commercial banks, it becomes locked in and it goes in other ways. So what is our reality? We need to think of the solutions and we must identify where the white spots are. Prepare the entrepreneurs, raise enough generation of entrepreneurs that are taught how to be investment ready, but also be able to deliver value, increase the success rate of entrepreneurs, but also improve the value chain to be able to de-risk them in such a format. And have the confidence to carry some of that risk, because at the end of the day, it's not as real as it looks. A lot of the perceived risk is out of lack of access to information and connection. And anyway, even commercial banks have asked them what their NPL ratio is. And that's for the big customers that are not supposed to create any problem. They deliver. So if we take the same approach to all of these guys, we can. But it's on us to find the solutions. And that's why we gather. So if all of you want these solutions, develop it. And then we'll find the money. Because there's money hanging around the world looking for the right path to get into these spaces. But if we bring the right solutions forward, we will be able to attract the support in whatever format, whether through philanthropy routes, whether through development banks, whether through different pipelines that would like to invest for change. But we have to do our part. We cannot keep thinking there's some savior. Anyway, it's clear right now. There's no savior coming from anywhere. We better wake up and find the solutions. Yes, ma'am. Mike? The young lady there.
Thank you so much. My name is Guvi. I'm all the way from Namibia. So I work in various capacities, and I wouldn't say just impact investing, but also just the startup ecosystem as a whole. So my interest in impact investing has been the corporate side of things. I was interested in knowing how CSR or CSI, very small money, but that has grown, can be deliberately used in the impact investing space. That led me to do my master's thesis, which I just finished with, thank God. So I'm more interested in corporate impact investing. Now, what I have gathered from my research is that there is actually interest for corporates to mobilize money into the space, particularly because my study was based in Namibia, but corporates love structure, okay? And so one of the things that I was looking at is a local NAP, because we don't have one in Namibia. I think my question is, how does the GSG, I guess, easily enable smaller countries like ourselves to actually become partners as well? To leverage something like this. I'm of the view that my research alone is not going to bring corporates to the table. It would be great to bring other local players, but also, but through the structure of a NAB. And I have tried to read a few papers that are out there on the NAB. I've read on GSG, but I think I have struggled to just get the right people to help me move forward with that conversation. I think overall the question is, what's that easy way to get it going, I guess?
I think we can solve your problem in 2 seconds. Atiano, if you just raise up your hand.
Thank you so much.
Atiano is GSG in charge of Africa.
Actually, if I can respond immediately, thank you to that question. We actually do have a very active task force in Namibia that is going to be launched maybe in the next 3 to 6 months or thereabout. So please get in touch. I would like to put you in touch with the colleagues who are there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
On the corporate side, you know, one of the interesting, when corporates have cash on balance and they're interested in thinking about investing for impact, a very effective way to do that is to partner with an impact investor. And so we've seen some very interesting models of corporates placing that capital in an impact fund and that capital then being extended, often very much to the benefit of the corporate in that area. So there are lots of different models of venturing for impact, and we can share some of those with you.
Thank you. I have 2 minutes, one more question only. The lady there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adane Uche. I run a food processing company here in Nigeria. So my question is, impact metrics often focuses on financial returns sometimes, or high-level outcomes for businesses. But local agribusinesses like myself deliver community-level nutrition impact, employment, climate benefits. So my question is, how is GSG evolving its approach to impact measurement to reflect these realities of food system in Africa?
Okay, I think since that's the last question, I think we should ask from a local level. We should answer from a local level. Since do you want to give, she's talking about measurement of impact metrics where agric is concerned in Africa. Well, let's talk from a Nigerian perspective, if you guys have any kind of work.
Yeah, I think you should come meet us, and I would say it's still evolving, it's still early days. One of the things that's important to us is standardization of metrics. We have a potpourri of different tools that have been introduced and people are using, and it's important for us to have measurements that help us compare apples with apples and not pears with apples. So we have different standards. The recent one that has just been launched, which is the ISSB, there's the SDGs, there's IRIS Plus and others. one of the programs which we want to do is called RISE program with the UNDP, FRC, and others that will help us strengthen impact transparency in Nigeria. But we need to have people who will work with us to strengthen impact measurement and management. So please, let's carry this conversation outside here. Please work with us in terms of designing what is useful for the Nigerian market. Thank you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us. Thank you very much for listening to our talk. Thanks, Elizabeth. Great.
I think it's okay to say wow in this instance, isn't it? Okay, please once again put your hands together for them. That was insightful, that was educative, and problems were solved, you know, at the instant. That was a very beautiful one. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ibukun Awushika, for moderating this session ever so brilliantly. And also to Miss Elizabeth Boggs-Davidson, thank you for your dedication. We see you and we appreciate the work you're doing. And I know that you've tried jollof rice, but there's so much you can try in terms of delicacy. Have you tried egusi soup? Have you tried afang soup? Are you going to try all of that? Thank you so much. It's beautiful to have you here in Nigeria. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your effort, especially into answering those questions. And I like that some of the very pivotal things were also mentioned, you know, when they said that can I have the podium, please? When they said that the GSG impact embraces local to global and global to local, it reminds me of something that we always say as a nation, you know, that we need local solutions to local problems. Because see it this way, nobody can actually solve the problem better than those who felt the impact, who have felt the heat of the problem. And I also appreciate the fact that Mrs. Ibukun Awushika talked about the need to creatively find our own solutions. And then, you know, there were so many other things that were mentioned that need to be put in mind. So we appreciate this very, very insightful fireside chat. I would like to ask that we once again give a round of applause for that beautiful session. Right now, we'll be going straight to the next item on the agenda. We are about winding down. Unfortunately, they say time flies when you're having fun. How many of us are having fun? I can see your hands. It's been insightful. Thank you so much for those hands. All right, we'll be going straight to the panel session now. And this panel session is on impact investing in Nigeria. And there will be some powerhouses who will be talking about this, addressing, you know, some of the major questions, the major challenges, and of course clarifying a lot of things on impact investing in Nigeria. So I'd like to ask that you please focus your attention to the screen to see the profiles of the powerhouses who will be discussing this as I invite them on stage. Unfortunately, because of our time, I can't read the entire profile, but please focus your attention on the screen. And I would also like to ask that once I call them up stage, I want a thunderous applause. Can we do that? Are we tired? Are we tired? Okay, let's rehearse. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. It's only like 3 tables that are clapping, so let's try it again. Ladies and gentlemen, a thunderous applause. That's so much better. Thank you so much. All right, without wasting time, I'd like to call on the moderator of this panel. I did say that this panel session will be on investing in Nigeria. And the panel will be moderated by none other than the Africa Market Development Manager, GSG Impact. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I bring up stage Miss Atieno Otonglo. We rehearsed this. Come on, you can do better. Put your hands together, please. Ms. Atieno Otonglo will be moderating this session. And of course, like I said, we have some other powerhouses who will be joining her to discuss impact investing in Nigeria. We'll be talking about the progress, the trends, and future outlook. You're welcome, Ms. Atieno. All right, joining her on stage is the CEO PenUp, and that is none other than Mr. Oguche Aguda. I like that. Please put your hands together as he comes up stage. Mr. Oguche Aguda, CEO PenUp. We also have joining them on the session the co-founder and the CEO, Amayi Foods, and that is Miss Kudzayi Hove. A round of applause, please, for Miss Kudzayi Hove. Miss Kudzayi Hove is the co-founder and CEO, Amayi Foods. Put your hands together once again until she gets to stage. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Also joining them on the panel session is partner at Sahel Capital, Miss Tosin Ojo. Please your hands together for Miss Tosin Ojo joining the panel session discussing impact investing in Nigeria. Miss Tosin Ojo, you're very much welcome. And last but definitely not the least, joining this panel session is partner at Kuramo Capital Management, Mr. Labi Williams. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Labi Williams joining the panel session discussing impact investing in Nigeria, progress, trends, and future outlook. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I will now be handing over to Ms. Atieno.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. I must mention that this is my second time in Lagos, in Nigeria. The first time was pre-COVID, so really looking forward to engaging with everyone. Now, let me just set the context a bit for the conversation and explain a bit about my work in Africa. A lot has been said about the GSG's approach, for global to local and local to global. But I must make a very important statement for the case of Africa. For Africa, we are really strong on the region. So Africa is working together as a region. The national partners, so far the 6 countries that we have, are really keen on making sure no country is left behind. So they are very active in terms of bringing on board the other countries that are yet to join. There's just been a mention about the case of Namibia, for example. I'm glad to let you know that we actually have a very active task force in Namibia. Maybe some of the colleagues will be coming to the Africa Impact Summit. And another very important note, and here I'm going to look at Anna Samake. With Burkina Faso coming on board, we are also bringing along our colleagues in the so-called Francophone African countries. And we also have Senegal, we have Cote d'Ivoire, and other countries like Togo as well that will be supported. Exactly. Yeah, so we had some interesting conversations sometimes back about maybe some regional approach or regional national partner there because of the nature of the ecosystems there. So in short, I would just like to let you know that Africa is really strong and we are not leaving anyone behind. We work very well together as a region. And so I welcome you from whatever ecosystems you represent or countries you represent to make sure that you're part of that conversation and to make sure that the work actually starts in your respective countries. Now, to the actual panel that we have here, it's a real pleasure to get to meet all of you. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the dinner yesterday, so we didn't get to meet in person. But this is a very strong and excellent, distinguished, panel, experts in their own right as well. So also for a bit of perspective, I think Nigeria is sitting at the crossroads of innovation and opportunity. We have, as we said, the rest of the West Africa region and Africa looking up to Nigeria. And we really have to move from promise, to actual potential and opportunity and make sure that we are aligning the intent and the capital itself. So with that, I'll just give you a brief of how we are going to be running the conversation. It's going to be around 4 key dimensions. The first one is around local level traction. So giving examples of what's working in other countries and other regions that maybe could be replicated. Secondly, around policy and regulatory landscape. So the reforms that actually need to happen. Transparency and reporting and how we can strengthen measurement. There was a question on that already. And finally, around advocacy and ecosystem engagement. So how building the networks and partnerships is really important for the work that we're doing on the continent. And of course, we'll be taking a Nigerian view or a local view of the discussion. So with that, allow me to start with the first question. This one, I'll give a chance to all the panelists to share a bit about the experience, the local experience. So kindly, each of you plays a very important role in Nigeria's impact ecosystem. Could you please share a specific initiative that you are leading that has demonstrated tangible social impact particularly one that could be scaled or replicated across Africa. And I would like to kindly start with Ms. Tosin Ojo, please.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, quick introduction. So, I work at Sahel Capital. We invest in the agribusiness value chain. I think I want to set that context first before I go into some specifics around what we've seen and what we've done, lessons learned, and the challenges. So, agribusiness context, that's, you know, what I'm going to be speaking about. In terms of specific initiatives we're leading, so, well, right now, we're the only agribusiness focused fund in Nigeria and one of the very few on the continent. So we have a very concentrated portfolio of agribusiness companies. So context, our first fund, FAFIN, has almost 60% invested in integrated primary production, crop and livestock value chain. And if you know anything about agriculture, that's like one of the riskiest sector that you can invest in, and even in Africa. And then our second fund is Social Enterprise Fund for Agriculture in Africa, and also invest in agribusiness companies. The difference, the first one was it was equity, bigger companies. We did quite a number of greenfield investments. The second one, working capital, primarily debt to smaller companies, what you would typically call the missing middle. So ticket size between 300K and 2.4 million. The first one, ticket size up to $8 million. Now, there have been a lot of lessons learned. First, there's a lot of impact because as you look at the entire sector from farm to table, that's the approach that we take. There's a lot of impact around, first, rural economy. Agribusiness occurs mostly outside of state capitals. So this is where you really get to provide jobs for people who would sort of like should be in those rural areas and economy. Second is integration of smallholder farmers. We like to talk about smallholder farmers a lot in Africa. The reality is that today they produce what we eat. That's the reality. I like to simplify it that way. About 70% of production come from them. It's not efficient. Their yield is low. Practices are poor. It has made the cost of food very high. But as of today, we do not have yet the resources to move away from them. So we need to design other models that where we can integrate them and solve the poverty problem at that level, and at the same time improve food production yield, productivity, efficiency, and make food affordable and accessible to people. But as of now, there's a lot of impacts on smallholder farmers at that level. And the third, in terms of impact generally, is, you know, jobs. Many of these SMEs in the agri sector, particularly, many of them are informal, family-owned. It's the first time they're getting capital. It's us, first institutional capital. A lot of work around governance, around team, around people, and building really sustainable companies. And that's what we've been doing since 2013, 2014. That we had our first fund. It's tough to do. It's difficult to do. I'll come to that later after this round. And there are ideas around how we should, the kind of restructuring or structuring that we should be doing to make it easier to do and to be able to catalyze more impact capital to do it. As of today, almost 80% of agribusiness entities need less than $200,000 to scale. Today, we don't have the mechanism and the fund structures to deploy capital to them. But I mean, that in terms of summary, that's all like what we've been doing and the impact of our work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll move to Mr. Oguche. Kindly. Same question. An initiative that you're leading that has demonstrated tangible social impact and that could possibly be replicated across Africa.
Thanks. So I represent the pension funds, the association that houses the pension funds who manage the largest assets. And I know one or two people have said we sit on, I always make that clear. We don't sit on it, we manage it. So we sort of get it work. And sometimes sitting at a conference like this that is impact, you know, I typically come with a bulletproof because the pension funds are sort of demonized. You know, you don't invest in this, you invest in government bonds. But for me, much of my work is trying to bridge that gap and let people understand, you know, how the pension funds think, the challenges they have, and some of the things they're doing. So working in a not-for-profit, quote unquote, in a highly, you know, profit world has its own issues. You know, trying to get the pension funds to understand also the market building, engaging the regulators, advocating, bringing intermediaries together can be challenging. But one of the things we're doing, I think, is really measurement, and I'm happy about a number of things I heard first from the chair of IIF, and then Elizabeth and Mr. Awoshika, just in terms of measurement, how pension funds measure, how people measure impact. A lot of what we do has impact around the thread, whether it's invested in companies that want to expand, whether it's invested in companies' raw materials, because these provide employment, provide jobs, hire people. We're trying to work towards stewardship. The companies we invest in, especially on the stock exchange, to be able to have a stewardship code for them. For most of the companies on the stock exchange, we have more than 5% collectively, right? So if we come to those companies and say, you have to do X, Y, and Z, you know, they will listen. So I think one key area is how that collective coming together, engaging with the regulator. And I think one key thing that can be replicated across Africa is the way we measure. Previously, we used to do month-to-month returns. So as I'm a pension fund, my return in this month is 10%, next month is 11%, and we're fighting against each other looking at that month-to-month. But one thing we've done is try to move that from month to 3 years, at least 3 years rolling average, 5 years, because that is how impacts, it's the patient capital. So if pension funds know that they will not be penalized for investing for the long term, that helps. So that's one key area, in addition to other things that will measure. But I think trying to get all the parties together, engaging intermediaries, some of the fund managers who are here, talking to them, trying to understand what is it that they need, how can we work together with them, try the regulators also. So I think that's key. So we're not demons, we're investing for impact, and I'll share some of that as we go ahead. Thanks.
You're not demons, right? Because I know there are several conversations and a lot of the countries also around the policy reforms that need to be done around pensions and investing. So yeah, thanks for that. We are clear that you're not demons, so don't worry about that. Next, I would like to move kindly to Ms. Kutsai. Yep.
Thank you. We are coming from the perspective, or I'm coming from the perspective of an SME, agric-based. We process tomato paste mainly for the Nigerian market. I think one of the initiatives that we have led has really been the localization of some of our key inputs, which are typically brought in from China. We've worked to actually localize, which has helped us in being more competitive and offering a more affordable product to the market. This has necessitated us, of course, working with small-scale farmers, which I think a lot of people do. But what we are now having to do is move them up the value chain to include them in the processing of the inputs. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at a lot more across Africa. Integrating them into the processing, because frankly, I think that's really the only way you break the cycle of poverty. If there is more value addition that we do as a country, and if we share more in the profits of the value addition. For us, this is really the focus of our business in the future, and it's something that we hope can be replicated.
Value addition, I think, is a very important discussion for a lot of our countries, and I know there have been lots of engagements on what that means and how that can be done. Thank you. Finally, Mr. Labi Williams, please.
Morning. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be on the stage with my distinguished panelists and moderator. And thank you, everybody, for being here on this public holiday. Kuramo Capital is a leading asset management firm investing across sub-Saharan Africa. And we have a number of initiatives we've been involved in for almost our 15-year existence. But I'll take a short opportunity to give you some flavor of the past, what we're doing in currently, and the immediate future, which involves our partnership with IIF and GSG Impact. Our past has, over the past 15 years, we've helped to catalyze a number of first-time fund managers and funds investing across sub-Saharan Africa, in process investing over $500 million across both funds and companies. We've backed 21 funds and 16 companies across a wide variety of industries, as well as across both private equity and venture capital. While doing this, of the 21 funds, we realized we'd only backed one female fund manager. And though we backed her twice across 2 different funds. And we then set off to help create a new set of female fund managers, and looked at how do we try to ensure that success. And as part of that, formalized our framework, which we've been using, ABCD, through the years, where we have one pillar is an accelerator to help help accelerate the female funds through training and various support mechanisms. And then secondly, the B, a bridge facility, a warehouse facility to help the fund managers make their initial set of investments to demonstrate their track record that would help attract more LPs to the funds. And then thirdly, catalyzing, the C, attracting more funds through our fund itself to invest in the managers and additional capital. And lastly, deepening by supporting with legal and financial support that we have used over the years with our existing GPs, also to help these fund managers. So that's what we've been focused on most presently. Over our history, we've invested in over 30 countries through our funds and companies, into over 200 companies, both directly and our look-through portfolio. Very focused on job creation, with over 650,000 jobs generated, and about 3.5 million lives impacted through those jobs, wider family and other supports, and helped catalyze over $3 billion coming into the continent, alongside the $500 million I mentioned we've invested. Coming most in our immediate future is an initiative around the Wholesale Impact Investment Fund, which the CEO of IIF mentioned we at Kurama were awarded through a very selective, rigorous process over a period of time, and we're very pleased to be helping get that off the ground. That's a fund that will invest in a next generation of fund managers, investing in various funds across Nigeria, and with the support of the federal government of Nigeria, as well as local investors. So that's the other initiative we're hard at work at the moment.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I think it was mentioned before, the wonderful work you're doing with Impact Investors Foundation, or the Nigeria National Partner here, especially with the Wholesale Impact Investing Fund. Thank you so much. And now I would like to move into the second area, which I think is really important. It's around policy and regulatory framework. As has been said, for example, by Labi, you say that you're not evil. But there's lots of conversation, and there's the need for conversation between government, policy, and other regulatory organizations around the kind of environment that would help to accelerate impact investing, not just within Nigeria, but even within the region. So my question to you is, which policies do you believe have been the most transformative on the ecosystem so far in terms of impact investing, for the case of Nigeria especially? And this one I'd like to direct to two people in particular. First, we'll start, if you don't mind, please, Oguchi. You could start, and then we'll go to Tosin after that. Yeah, Oguchi.
One policy which is imminent is just how we measure and report on ESG. So one of the larger pension funds had mentioned that, because they're part of a global organization, ESG is part of their investment process, but in a sense they are penalized because they are the only ones doing it. So there has to be that standardization. So one of the things we are working on with one DFI is to see how we can standardize that in Nigeria. And I think it's going to be a game changer where each pension fund is going to report on how they measure ESG. It's going to be in their annual reports. So that process is ongoing, how they measure, how they manage. So I think that will be a game changer because that helps to bring some standard. And also just looking from the GSG and just globally, there has to be a standard for Africa. I also sit on the governing council of the Pan-African Fund Managers Association. And one of the things is there are so many different models coming out. Today's the SGD, responsible reporting. So there's just so many models. So we need to have that standardization. That's going to happen in Nigeria, and that will help just in terms of how people assess risk, how they report it. And I think that's also going to be a game changer. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We had this really interesting conversation, I think it was last year, where we had both the Nigeria national partner and Ghana national partner engage with our then colleagues in the policy team at GSG, just looking at the standards and what's coming and what that actually means. For example, for the SMEs and the kind of reporting that would be required and whether they have the capacity, for example. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. Thank you so much. Kindly, Tosin, if you could respond to the same question as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll speak more from the perspective of fund managers, PEVC fund managers, and sort of how that whole regulatory and policy environment is shaping out. The first is, in terms of the apex regulator for fund managers in Nigeria is the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they've been quite forward thinking in terms of how they are evolving their policies. So, for example, long before the new ISA Act came out around recognizing digital as crypto, the Securities and Exchange Commission already had a framework for digital asset managers who are maybe doing crowdfunding or even doing other forms of investments. A few that we have seen that have risen in the fintech space. So they've been quite forward thinking around, let's as much as possible bring everyone into the formal fund management system, right? And that has been positive. Where there are still challenges is that, number one, they're not, in terms of taking advantage of that, there's still a problem because there's the regulation in terms of, okay, we're creating the regulation, putting the regulation there so that you can participate. But then when you now want to participate, it's just, there's a lot of regulatory sort of hurdles to jump through, right? And that's really, really, and I'm saying this because I think as stakeholders, we kind of need to come together and figure out how do we reduce those bottlenecks, because it can be quite onerous on fund managers, can really be quite onerous and difficult, especially when you're trying to invest in SMEs. Now, if you look at the initiative the Impact Investment Foundation is doing with Kuramo Capital, I think is very laudable in terms of the OSA funding. We're going to need a lot of we're going to need a lot of fund managers to benefit from that vehicle. The real question today is that where are the fund managers? Are those fund managers there today? Now, the new SEC regulation that just came out, all PE and VC managers have to be registered with SEC. To be registered with SEC, you need the fund manager license. The minimum capitalization for that license is 150 million naira. So from day one, no matter how great you are as a team, experience, 150 million naira that is just going to be there on your balance sheet untouched. It's going to be there every quarter as you report, they have to see it. So where are the fund managers today? And I'm talking about just capital. Beyond the capital, there is a big regulatory order to jump through before you get that license out. And now that is order that is just been there. And if you're going to if you're going to operate here, you have to be registered here in terms of these new regulations that have come out. So I think in terms of policy, we need a forum where the impact investment, maybe foundation, all of the stakeholders, like we need to sit down with the regulators. I understand what regulators are trying to do because there are a lot of unscrupulous actors in the ecosystem, like Ponzi schemes, for example. I'm sure many of us heard of like the 1.3 trillion that got lost in one of the Ponzi schemes. So SEC is under pressure and they're always trying to sort of use barriers to filter out unscrupulous actors. But those things can have unintended consequences in terms of now the bottlenecks they create in being able to catalyze capital to where it's needed. So I think that's the first thing. We kind of need to sit down with PenCom. One of the challenges that the pension funds have is that they are heavily regulated. Literally, is extremely prescriptive. So you cannot move your head this way or that way. There's a problem. So we sort of need to connect the regulators to this work that we're doing so that we can actually see action. Because that's why I'm asking the critical question, where are the fund managers today that will be able to take this funding and connect them to the SMEs that need the funding? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that you have said it very well. I cannot add anything to what you said. All right, so I'd like to move now to the topic of transparency and reporting, which has also been mentioned before. Someone talked about or had a question on that earlier around what exactly that means, how to enhance reporting, for example, what kind of frameworks are in place and what Nigeria is doing about that. I don't know if you're aware, but Nigeria is actually a leader in this area, being an early adopter, for example, for the ISSB framework, which is quite commendable. As I mentioned, there was a discussion sometime last year, where we were looking at the frameworks and what that means for Africa. What it means, for example, for the SMEs, given that they are the bulk of contributors to our economies in most of our countries, and what the reporting would mean for them. For example, do they have the capacity to be able to do that kind of reporting? And so my question is going to be to Kudzai and Oguche. Maybe we'll start with Kudzai this time. And the question is, how are institutions integrating transparency and standardized impact measurement into investment decision making from the Nigerian perspective?
Okay, so from the SME perspective, they're probably not. Okay, and that's just a straight answer. I mean, the ISSB standards are fairly onerous. I think for an average SME, and I think just given kind of what's happening in the landscape, it's important for us to, we talk about localizing, I think it's important for us to localize and take into account our own reality in terms of, what are people capable of. I think for the average SME, you're firefighting half the time. So for you to now sort of look into putting into place, fairly structured and complicated kind of reporting structures, that's very difficult. Look, I mean, we can talk about training and upskilling, and I think those are important, but I think it needs to be a gradual process. You phase in over time the reporting requirements, which make it easier for people to comply, because at the end of the day, you do want to get accurate information, and you want to make sure that, it's data that can be used, right? So really, I think that's kind of the approach that needs to be taken, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Thanks a lot for your honesty. Oguche, kindly.
Yeah, I think, like Tosin said, the pension funds are highly regulated, and for good reason, because they manage people's retirements. And Nigeria is an early adopter, and the pension industry is also voluntarily joining on that train. Along with the Financial Reporting Council, there are some workshops lined up whereby there's going to be capacity building just so that there's a standard. And like I mentioned, I think the partnership has to be there from the global level, from the local level, from the regulators. We're seeing a bit more collaboration with the regulator now, just in terms of realizing the responsibility that we hold as pension funds. Number one, to manage people's retirement so that when they do retire, they have money to retire in dignity. But also from a broader scale to realize that, because of the amount of funds we manage, we also have, in a sense, a sort of responsibility to the environment and to the larger economy. And I've particularly been, listening in and engaging some of the Dutch pension funds, which Elizabeth mentioned, and they're doing quite a lot in that regard. We can see where they're going. And some of the thinking, you get that, especially with, Gen Zs, some of them are saying, I want to know what my pension fund's investing. I want to know, does my pension fund care for the environment? So I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of push, maybe not necessarily now in Nigeria, but a couple of years, we're going to see a push from the contributors saying, I want my pension funds to invest in this or that because it aligns with my values and what I want to do. So thinking about the future, there's going to be a lot more transparency also from the pension funds. In Nigeria, most people who have pensions, they know their pension assets are growing, but they don't know which companies they're investing or what sectors they invest in. I think there's going to be a lot more push. And also, I think there's a pull and push. The contributors can also push and demand and engage more with their pension funds. I'm always a stickler for engage with your pension funds. When you get your statements, find out from them what are they investing in and all of that, and that helps also. So just in a nutshell, there's some work going around the early adoption, capacity building, and coming from standardization for the pension funds.
As you say, there was quite a bit of work. I recall some time back we had this working group that was led by the Dutch national partner, where we were looking at the model that they have run in the country. And then you were on that group. You were in the group together with colleagues, I think, from Kenya, Ghana, and a couple of other African countries. So it would be interesting to see where the conversation stopped and what's happened since then. So yeah, thank you very much. All right. I'd like to move to the final of the 4 sections that we had, and this one is around advocacy and ecosystem engagement. So as we all know, and as you have repeatedly said, it's all about the network and the collaboration. And there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of engaging the various pillars of the ecosystem and how we can work together collaboratively. So I'd like to ask this question with this in mind, a question to Labi and Tosin. And the question is, how are you working with intermediaries like field builders, transaction advisors, or development partners to shape pipeline and drive capital towards inclusive and scalable enterprises? So we could start with the Labi and then move to Ms. Tosin, please.
Right. Thank you. The ecosystem here in Nigeria has a rich history of collaboration, and a lot of the earlier private equity firms with DFI backing have had to do a lot of work on impact reporting historically. So there's been quite a lot of familiarity and adoption of a number of principles and through the years, and various acronyms from the UN PRI.
So what kind of collaborations can we? Nigeria is a huge country
that are quite innovative, that are not quite seen before on the continent, that could perhaps be used as models also for.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocol. Understand the paperwork you're asking them. Understand the paperwork you're asking them to complete. In the UAE, investment seems to be ABC compared to what I see here in Nigeria. Nobody's asking Amaya Foods, oh, you're up there, or this other lady here who is dealing at a local level to meet international standards. It isn't done. You look at them at the level at which they're playing. So I ask those of you on the table, and I know pension fund, yes, you're scared to spend people's money because you will be questioned. But how are we going to create the solution amongst us? Let's stop looking for policymakers. What can you do in your own institutions now that will make it easier for people to get capital? And we're not talking a lot of money here, but what can we do? You say the money is out there. Give it to us. Give it to them.
Actually, I would like to answer that. And I like the frank and the brutal honesty. But I will start with this adage: he who plays the piper dictates the tune. There's no fund manager here that is managing their own money. They've collected money from people. They have reporting to do to those people. I can guarantee you, for that reporting that we ask from the SMEs, we're doing 3 times that reporting. At the same time, we need to find the pipeline. At the same time, we need to manage those companies like we are running the companies. And we're talking about SMEs here, where my associate is working full-time as a CFO for that company, and at the same time doing deal work for me. You know, in the spirit of, well, let's be very honest, right? So it goes to the heart of where is the capital coming from? We need to bring everybody to the table, which points to the point, the conversation, the point I made earlier, that we need to bring everyone to the table and say, you ask me for this, therefore I have to ask for this. Can you reduce that burden? And what is your concern? Your concern is that you don't want unscrupulous actors in the ecosystem. Are there other ways that we can sieve out this kind of people so that I'm not providing all of this documentation to you and then it cascades down that way? Sorry.
Thank you, madam, for your direct and brutal question. We deal with direct and brutal every single day. Every single day. As Madam Tosin said, we're taking capital from others. We're co-invested in a company together. We know the challenges we face. A startup. We've backed a startup airline. We've backed a startup hospital business. You'll see later today on the hospital tour. And they happen to share, they're in the same office building as ours. So if you visit our office too, we'll take you through what we do and you'll see the direct brutality. But we back startups, we face challenges, and we're committed to what we do. And we achieve success, but it's not easy. And we're coming in a place where capital is less available. You've mentioned twice you've worked in Dubai. We know there's much more capital there available. It's a different market. But we're happy to work closely with you and others. As I mentioned, we've deployed $500 million here. So, you know, it's what we do.
Sorry? No. No, they've not given me money, but
She's my sister. She's my sister. I know her well.
This is my investor who's asking where the money is from. But look, simple thing. Like, I think it's not rocket science, right? As Stella is saying, we have an investor who has asked us for impact metrics. We report regularly, okay? But it is not like, you know, reams and reams, right? We start off with what is realistic, what we can do, right? And the investor is fantastic. This is EHA Impact Ventures. We have impact assets from Bethesda in Washington, D.C., Mother Food International from Canada. They ask us, just give us these things that you can realistically look at and address and make an impact, right? Maybe next year or the following year, this is what is working, and this is what is addressable. So, you know, for us, I think, as I said, local solutions, right, for local problems. ISSB, I mean, guys, I mean, realistically, it's just not going to happen, right, for us. So this is, you know, for me, and there are people who are willing to invest on that basis. So, you know.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, right, in the spirit of that, so if you look at DFC is funded by the US government. If you look at BII, funded by the British government, JICA, funded by the Japanese government. And these people they've set up DFIs to give money into Africa. Where's our own DFI as Nigeria? Honestly, the Nigerian government should be the first impact investor. That's the honest truth. That's the honest truth. And I'm happy with the job. So I do feel you. I do feel you. I worked in the government for a bit. I always tell this story. My first time in the government, 7:30 a.m., I got there with my suit. I wore the Nigerian flag, and nobody was there. Nobody was there. I was so happy to be working for my government. And one of the things I wanted to do in government was civil service reforms. We all know the civil servants that are there. They don't think about it. I was so happy working for the government of Nigeria. So until we work on civil service reforms, where the civil servants are paid as much as those in the private sector, they are thinking as it's done in Singapore, right? I think that's where we need to get to. But, you know, we can't talk about the problems all through. Interestingly, you helped me get a visa to Dubai when I was coming in, when they did help Nigerians out. But with the work the NAB is doing, and I'm proud to be on the NAB, where we've been able to secure money from the government. It hasn't come in yet, but we have to be able to engage in a way that, you know, when you sit at the table with government, you engage them, you let them know. Again, like Mr. Woshka said, that structure has to be there. That filter has to be there. The fund managers, pension funds who manage 6-7 trillion will not invest directly in a SME. That's the honest truth. It has to go through a fund manager, which some people are working with, and it's tough. It's tough work, but these events coming together, we need to come out with a communique, what's going to happen. I know they're meeting the minister tomorrow. It's tough, I can imagine, coming from a client like Dubai, but little by little, hopefully we'll get there. We'll get there.
Thank you. I think we got so 2 more questions. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Let her comment, please. I think it's related to that, and then you can. Yeah.
Okay.
So good afternoon or morning. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Adeso Akumbo Rhodes. I'm a fund manager as well, and we invest in SMEs here in Nigeria and Ghana. So I think my comment, which everyone has kind of touched on, is to answer the lady's question. Until we have local capital pools that are majority funding our local funds, we're going to keep on dancing to the tune of foreign investors. So we are all backed by DFIs, we're all backed by the foreign institutions that require the reporting that we then pass on to SMEs. And that is what has worked in developed markets that we've had to import here. So the supply of capital is dictating how we kind of, pass that down to SMEs. Until we have truly local pools of capital. So the banks start to invest in fund managers. The capital that the DFIs provide to the banks to invest in SMEs that they're not doing now, maybe there's a way to disintermediate that, if that's the word, to pass through the fund managers. Local insurance companies should start to invest in fund managers. Pension funds should start to invest in fund managers. Our sovereign wealth fund, BOI, which thankfully has invested in Arua. So I think until we have local capital mobilization from all sources of the local environment that we can tap into, we can then start to design and dictate what is actually suited to our own local environment. But until then, unfortunately, we have to dance to the supply of capital. The supply of capital is mostly foreign. So we have a long way to go, and I don't want us to be disillusioned that it's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. Is it foreign? But yeah, exactly. The risk profiles are a little bit different.
See, Stella, just listen. How long have we had the impact investment work in Nigeria?
2019.
Okay, 2019 to 2005 is how many years? 6 years. No, so it's not just about giving it time. It's about understanding the process and what the end game is. We're not blind to our end game, but we're happy to start where we can. Now, when you're referring to the Dubai government, even if there's a lot of foreign capital that feeds Dubai's development, there's an intentionality of the Dubai government to stand as the mitigant in the gap. And that allows all of that development, all the money for all the hubs and all the development groups and all of that, it's borne by your Department of Economy and Tourism and other departments intentionally. Now, we don't have that yet. Why? Because first you have to have people, okay, this is the permanent secretary. He was in budget and planning. They've just moved him to petroleum. But why is he here? That's because in the last 3 years, the NAB and IF working on our WIF fund, we have patiently, and please write that word patiently, we have patiently engaged and worked with Finance and Ministry of Budget and Planning to give them a clear understanding of the vision of impact investing, of the importance of us building the wholesale fund, and the fact that they're a critical component of us successfully doing that. Now, for someone who's lived private sector all her life, it's a very frustrating journey to work that patience with government. But we're matured enough and have enough understanding to know that it is key to us achieving what we seek. And therefore, until we get, and we're getting there, because what I'm saying is this gentleman was just moved from budget and planning to petroleum, but he still came here today. Why? Because, yeah, and you should clap for him. When the last Minister of Budget and Planning under President Buhari, when he finished his term, and we had a new Minister for Budget and Planning under President Tinubu, both of them came to our last year's conference where Nick was. It's the first time you find an exited minister and a current minister for a ministry both sit together at the next conference like a handover, expressing what he did the last time, and the new minister saying, this is what I am going to do working with you. That's a fruit of the patience we have built. And when this gentleman switched, took over from the last permanent secretary as well, they did the same thing, enough for him to have been moved to petroleum, and he didn't walk away and said, I'm coming here so I can still see how I can support what you do, even from where I am going to sit now. We're playing the long game. We cannot be in a hurry, because Rome was not built in a day. We know that for a nation like ours, this is critical. We're committed to the process. We will achieve that result. But that bridge role that government plays is so consequential to us being able to do what you say. Dubai is the place where they have a conversation. When I served on the board of Binance Global, they had a conversation with them about crypto and all that technology. In 2 weeks, they set up a ministry to take charge of it. Who does that? Dubai does. Why? Because at that point, they have decided they want to be a hub for all of the blockchain and crypto issues for that sector of the world, which is why you can see Abu Dhabi investing in Binance now. What is the point I'm making? Yeah, they're lucky that they can have compassionate autocracy or kingship and rulership, and it's worked for their development. Democracy has its cost. It has its value, but it has its cost. And we're working through the process. So, stay calm. Be wowed. No, but let me finish with this. The challenge is to us as a room. We're all part of the early ecosystem of making this work. We have to start where we can, which is what we've done, but we mustn't lose sight of where we're going. And we must keep that collective voice to push and to drive until we get exactly where we need to. And you know what? We're not fighting for ourselves. Let's understand this. Because the fight we have is for like 80% of this country. 90% of our productive sector is SMEs. So our growth is not in any other sector, but in that sector. The real change we need to seek for our economy and for the lives of our people, and for these over 70% young people under 40 years of this country's population, which guarantees your peace of mind and your retirement. Because if we do not solve that problem, we're all looking for trouble. So really, it's a long game. And everyone in this room must understand their part in it, and we cannot afford not to work collaboratively in order for us to. So I salute everyone in this room who has a part in it, who is committed to that process, and is working for all of us to be able to achieve that result. But we understand the game, and we're playing it for the long term. Thank you.
Okay,
Take
can I
one
ask-
more question.
Yes, please.
Maybe
I have the
sometime.
microphone. You know, we established yesterday that fear the person with the microphone. So thank you very much. Can I say anything again after my chair has spoken? So I'm not going to respond in that direction anymore. But I just want to speak more around a commitment and also get your commitment too as well. There's a work we are doing on policy. So I want everybody to come on board with regards to policy. Policy can help us strengthen our market infrastructure. Policy can help us unlock capital from where, you know, with local capital from pension funds. And you did mention that the pension funds is heavily regulated. And last week I was at the PenComs, and I'm starting to understand their challenges, but we need to engage with them. So when we create a forum for engagement, please, I want you there. Please, I want everyone in the room. What are the barriers? What are the pain points? How can we co-create? So please, I'm inviting you all to please be with us. So we do not want to create policies that cannot work for the market. So your voices need to be represented. That's the first thing. Second thing, too, in terms of policy, again, we're looking at gender. So we're working with the PwC, and we want a robust policy for access to finance for gender. We wanted to broaden it to other groups that are marginalized and require inclusion. So how can we get you all in the room for that conversation? So please, we'll be reaching out to you to be part of that conversation. The fourth thing I want to mention is, maybe I've forgotten that, I'll come back to you. But I think I want to say, yes, is on the ISSB, the measurement. I learned that in the Global South, we were not actively part of the feedback, the conversation. 5% from the Global South was part of the process for feedback to the ISSB. That's not good enough. We have 85% of the world's population in the Global South. And then in terms of something that will shape our future in reporting, we are not being heard. I think we need to redo that. The process is still going on. We need to contribute to the matrices that will shape the ISSB. And please reach out to me. I'll be happy to make that conversation, connection with IFRS for us to be a part of that process. It's so important. Now, the final point I'm going to make is that the IFRS was the process too in the Global South. We're not part of the conversation. Now today everybody is using IFRS standards in reporting, your accounting, and so on. It's the future. So if small businesses are not seeing themselves in part of reporting or using ISSB, I think you're not doing yourself a favor. It's a cost, which I think you should start apportioning in your budget to be very intentional about reporting for impact. It's just for your growth. It's the growth of the market. By 2030, every entity in Nigeria will be required to report. So are you going to start putting yourself, you know, in line with that and building internal capacities to help yourselves to become champions in reporting for the ISSB and for impact? We don't want it to be about ticking boxes. It's about fostering a corporate behavioral change where impact is at the center of everything, every decision you're making. So I'll just leave it here, and we can continue afterwards. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone.
The last question, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I'll be really quick because, you know, there have been a lot of questions. My name is Bountiful. I represent Alana Green Limited. We're a farm mechanization services business. Now, my question is, yes, I'm all for standards. I'm all for structures because I also think it's a risk for Africa's businesses not to have, small businesses not to have the structure, you know, that allow them grow. So I agree with the founders to have, you know, set rules and all of that. But my question really is, you have the sort of companies you want to fund, obviously. You have the sort of businesses, small businesses you want to touch. What are your efforts in getting those businesses to the point where you can fund them? One, are there accelerator programs? Are there cohorts? Are there fellowships? Are there sort of like strategic investments or collaborations that you're making in that regard to get businesses to where you want to fund them?
It's connected to that one, please, because we are doing badly for time. Please.
Sorry that I have to contribute. So I'm going back to sustainability. The fact remains that the reporting we're talking about, it cannot happen if we don't build organizations to be able to understand that sustainability is the strategic impact for their business. So what are you reporting? Because like Etemori said, it is going to be compulsory based on the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria's roadmap that by 2030, SMEs, for PIEs is 2028, for SMEs is 2030. So the question is not about just reporting. You don't report what doesn't happen. You don't report what you don't do, just like you have your strategy as a business. So what we should focus on, and I think what you guys can do, as I said, you guys are doing a lot, and I think it's great, but what we can do is to strengthen SME capacity to understand that sustainability needs to be part of, is a business imperative. It's a strategic imperative. They should practice it. They should embed it, inform their business taking. And when that happens, reporting becomes just a giving. Because you don't report what does not happen. You don't report what you've not done. It's about performance reporting. That is what it's just about. So that's my contribution on this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lola, also from PwC. So my colleague just mentioned something, and that is in relation to why this should be a strategy. So from the SME perspective, strategy is not driven enough. And when you start to drive this as strategy, which is actually the essence of their business, and you start to tie it to governance, and you start to then go back to what reporting is supposed to be, I think that, you know, we can do a lot in that area. And that way, it is easier to implement. And then the focus would that be that you can ultimately report when you're mature enough to do that. Thank you.
Right. So, yeah, just Mr. Bountiful, just like I opened it to Madam Stella, you're welcome to our offices. We'll show you what we do and how we do it. And on the point of reporting, it may not be as onerous as you think, quite frankly, you know. But also, we've spoken about advocacy. We have the Private Equity and Venture Capital Association of Nigeria. Myself and Tosi sit on the board. Our former chairman, Danladi Verheyen, is here also. Adeswa is also on the board. So we're active. You have the professionals who are involved in building advocacy here in this room and trying to do the work and incorporating your feedback.
Okay, thank you so much. In the interest of time, I will wind up, and thank you so much to all the panelists for their wonderful responses and their insights on the local ecosystem. Thank you. And you are welcome to the Africa Impact Summit in Accra. I hope the session will be lined up with the brutal questions as we put them. So, yeah, you're welcome there to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Much to everyone who contributed. Okay, please, photographers, take them photos quickly. I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed. It's been a very insightful segment. Thank you to the panelists. If I'm being brutally honest, I did enjoy the session. So please put your hands together for them. All right, thank you to the panelists, moderated, of course, by Ms. Atieno Otonglo, African Market Development Manager, and of course the other panelists, Mr. Oguche, Ms. Kutsai Hove, Ms. Tosin Ojo, Mr. Labi Williams. We appreciate your contributions and for bringing the wealth of knowledge and answering every question intently and concisely. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for the interest of time, we appreciate everyone's cooperation so far. We apologize to those who could not take their questions, but I'm sure that there will be an avenue through which you can reach the right persons that would answer and do justice to the questions. All right, without wasting time, we will now be taking the next segment on the agenda. I'd like to ask that we please get settled. We are winding down, I promise. We'll be going to straight to brunch and networking very soon. So we'll have enough time to communicate with one another. But in the meantime, can we please get settled so we can go to the next item? All right, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for the Impact Fund Showcase. And just in case you're wondering what that is about, this session is designed to provide a platform for fund managers to present their fund strategies and, of course, their impact thesis, their portfolios, and the likes. So in no time, we'll be going to the Impact Fund Showcase. All right, please, apologies, sorry. All right, sincere apologies for that. We have a very important segment on the agenda that we just cannot skip, and we have an important guest who is here. We have been waiting for his arrival, and it's time to herald his arrival. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going to the Impact Fund Showcase in no time, but in the meantime, I'd like to bring up someone special to do a goodwill remark before we continue on the program very quickly. And this person is none other than the former permanent secretary of the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning and the present permanent secretary, Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I bring up stage Dr. Emeka Vitalis Obi. Keep clapping, keep clapping. He's not far from the stage, so you can sustain the applause.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning to you all. Before I make little remarks, I want to most sincerely tender my heartfelt apology for coming in from the airport straight at this time. It's because of the regulations we have in the government in terms of movement from one point to the other and engaging official functions. Suffice it to say that my involvement and engagement with the Impact Investment Foundation has been a long one, deep and critically impactful, and I've enjoyed every moment since my engagement started, expressing my heartfelt commitment. So even though my portfolio has been changed by Mr. President, who felt that I had done good work in budget and asked me to go to Petroleum Resources to handle another critical sector for the economy. There is a nexus between both because one sector actually critically feeds the budget of the nation, and that sector is the petroleum resources. So having made this, I want to work. I wish to say, yes, I know you've gone far, but I want to use the opportunity to say thank you and welcome to this event. This event had, during my stint in budget, it was one of my last functions, I expressed that we are giving it all full commitment to every program and every vision to be realized. And I know it's not only here, there is another engagement in Accra. All together, I want to synchronize and align with the fact that we need to stay on course. I liked what was said earlier. Government runs on intentionality and purposefulness. But suffice it to say that if we stay and keep our eyes on the ball, we will surely and surely and surely get there. The economy is picking up from my statistics at budget and planning, and it is going to even pick up faster in terms of indices that by the end of the year, there will be a projection and growth. I know one of the vision of Mr. President is to ensure that the oil and gas sector not only fuels the budget, but also fuels economic growth by taking care of the leakages, the leadership challenges in that sector, and the overall coordination of that sector. So I believe that this gathering is a big testament to Africa's immense potential as a hub for impactful investment and sustainable development. Again, at budget and planning, there were different startups hubs that we gave approval to. Various international development partners, example JICA, GIZ, and a couple of others have come up with interventions into the ecosystem for us to create startup hubs, empower SMEs, empower youth, and we give all approval to ensure that we empower, we bring in a lot of funds at the middle level of the economy to engender growth, having also making sure that we created an enabling business environment for these hubs to kick off and start and maintain their course. So I know we come from different sectors, different countries, different backgrounds, but we share a common vision to harness innovative investment strategies that will yield financial returns and drive meaningful social and environmental change across our continent. Africa, a nation of 54 countries, stands at a pivotal moment now in history because every sector of the global space wants to move into Africa and harness. The Chinese want to come in, Europeans want to come in, the West want to come in. So she's like a bride that is heavily courted because there's the rich potentials that are in Africa. So there's no better time now to wake up. The Africans need to realize that they have a lot in them. They have a lot of natural resources, a youthful, abundant population, dynamic entrepreneurial spirit among the present generation that is driving the entire ecosystem. But unlocking this potential requires deliberate coordination amongst us. It also requires strategic partnership, as has been explained. And that's where government comes in. Government comes up with policies that will drive strategy and see to it that strategies are implemented to obtain meaningful and transformational results. And also a commitment to responsibly invest. So it's worthy of note that Nigeria as a country is proud to support initiatives that align with sustainable development goals, particularly those ones that promote energy transition, environmental stewardship, and inclusive growth as well. I want to say that it is recognized that impactful investing is a very powerful tool, extremely powerful tool to accelerate these objectives. It will not only accelerate this objective, it actually fosters the attainment of economic objectives, promotes economic resilience, and improves the overall quality of life in our space here. I know during the course of this summit, or rather I expect that during the course of this summit and study tour, I want to encourage us as all participants to please engage openly, share your insights with one another, because we need to learn across the board, because we've come here to this hub here and forward lasting partnerships. So let's leverage this platform to inspire innovative solutions, mobilize capital, and champion projects that will uplift our communities and protect the ecosystem. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly permit me to commend the organizers of this event for arranging a space where global investors, African entrepreneurs, and development institutions, as well as public sector leaders like us, can engage, exchange, and co-create. Now, these conversations are not only timely, but they're absolutely necessary. I want to say on this note, welcome to you all, especially those who are coming from outside Nigeria. Welcome to Nigeria. Nigeria is a blessed country. It's a land of resilience. And if you watch the jingle these days, you see the jingle that says, I'm a real Nigerian. A real Nigerian is a resilient Nigerian, is an accountable Nigerian, is a caring Nigerian. Nigeria is deeply blessed, but everything falls on leadership. And the conversation is still ongoing. That's why we must all partake in meetings like this and engage strategies and be part of making effective policy changes and driving those policy implementations to affect not just us, but even the generation to come. Like a philosopher once said, let's learn to build trees, the shades of under which we would not even sit, but future generations we do want to sit down. So the impact of this event goes beyond you and I. It goes beyond sitting next to each other. It goes beyond generation that are still coming up. On my way coming from the airport, while I was just traversing and looking at the space of the metropolis, and I was just recalling my early days in the city of Lagos, having been a graduate of University of Lagos. I was just like reminiscing a lot of things, and I was looking. I was like, I'm coming to a meeting that is thinking about how to impact the lives of everybody, the citizens I'm seeing on the street. So you could see that why the average Nigerian may not understand, but the decisions taken in impact investing will go a long way to affect such lives and empower them to know that the country can be better than they are currently experiencing. On this note, I want to say please enjoy today, this morning, this afternoon, and this evening, and I want to wish us a very, very fruitful summit ahead. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Please put your hands together once again for Dr. Emeka Vitalis Obi, MNI. Thank you so much for that amazing goodwill remark. Okay, so we'll be taking the Impact Fund Showcase very shortly, but I figured we've been sitting for a while, so I want us to stretch. Can we do that? Do we want to do that? Okay, so can we all stand up? We're not going to be doing the typical exercise, so don't worry, you won't punch anybody. What I want you to do now is find as many people wearing the same color as you and give them a high five. If you're wearing crocodile green, I guess you're on your own. I'm sorry, you're on your own. If I'm wearing your color, you can give me a high five. I'm not invisible. Exactly. So find as many people wearing the same shade and color as you. Give them a high five. Okay, the same color. Let's go with the same color. The same color as you. It doesn't have to be the same shade, don't worry, but find someone wearing the same color as you. Make sure you leave your seats. Nobody's coming to me. I can see a lot of greens and yellows. Make sure you give a high five to as many people wearing the same color as you. Make sure you're leaving your seats. I can see blue and yellow. What are you doing together? Let me stand here so I can see you clearly. There's a pink here. Okay, I think I can only see two pinks. Tons of blacks here, so you have a lot of people to high five. I can see purples. All right, if you're done with that, you can go back to your seats. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love how Nigerians take every single opportunity to network. Don't worry, you get to talk very soon. But please, we can go back to our seats now so we can continue. We have about a minute to do that. Thank you so much. Oh boy, I've triggered something. Am I in trouble? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we can please head back to our seats. We're almost done, I promise. We have just one more thing to check off the list, and then it will be time for brunch and a lot of networking, so you have enough time to do that. But thank you so much for cooperating. So did we all find everyone wearing our colors? Did we all find everyone wearing our colors? That's good. That's good. All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to now go straight to the next item, which is the Impact Fund Showcase. And I was trying to explain earlier that this is a session that is designed. Can we please settle down? We're almost done, I promise. This won't take too much time, and there's so much more time to network. We'll be having brunch and networking session very shortly, so please, can we just settle down? Thank you so much. So the Impact Fund Showcase, ladies and gentlemen, is a session that is designed to provide a platform for fund managers to present their fund strategies, their impact thesis, their portfolio wins, the capital raising needs where relevant. And of course, this will spotlight 3 high-performing and promising impact investment funds operating within and beyond Nigeria. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is in no particular order, but to open the floor for the Impact Fund Showcase, we'll be having the first speaker here, and that is the founding partner and the CEO, Arua Capital Management, Miss Adesua Okumbo Rhodes. Please put your hands together for Miss Adesua Okumbo Rhodes for Impact Fund Showcase.
Hi, hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. I don't know if we're putting the slides up or if I should just talk. Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I run a fund called Arua Capital Management. We are an early stage growth equity and gender lens fund, investing in SMEs here in Nigeria and Ghana. Our focus is to invest in rapidly growing SMEs that are either female-led, female-founded, or female-focused. We've got slides, okay. Female-led, female-founded, or female-focused that are providing essential goods and services to the economy. So we invest in food, so agri-processing, food manufacturing. We invest in clean energy, so access to power through renewable energy. We invest in healthcare, and we also invest in financial services. We're a Lagos-based firm. There are 11 investment professionals here on the ground in Lagos. I've been on the ground now for the last 10 years. And the Fund 1 was launched in October 2019. Actually, Mrs. Obukuma Oshika was there in the George Hotel when we launched it more than 6 years ago. We now have about $55 million under management across 2 funds. Fund 1 was a 2019 vintage. It was a $20 million fund. And we're now raising a $50 million Fund 2 that will be doubling down on what has now been a proven and validated investment strategy from Fund 1. We are backed by a number of global institutions, so MasterCard Foundation, Visa Foundation, Bank of Industry, the Nigerian DFI is also one of our investors, BII is one of our investors, Ford Foundation is one of our investors, and FSD Africa is also one of our investors. Fund 1 has invested into 11 companies. We're now validating, I believe we've validated the investment strategy, and we're generating returns above global benchmarks for a 2019 vintage, and we're also showcasing enormous impact. In terms of my background, I've been in the industry now for the last 16 years. Started my career in investment banking, first with Lehman Brothers in London, and then at JP Morgan in London as well, where I was in M&A and leverage finance. And I also worked for a private equity fund in London called TLG Capital. And then I went back to JP Morgan and I was headhunted by a firm called Syntaxis Capital that was very successful in another emerging market in Central and Eastern Europe. And they brought me back, headhunted me, brought me back to Nigeria to set up an Africa fund. So I did that for about 5 years. We were on the road trying to raise a $100 million fund. And it was through the lessons and I guess failures of raising that fund that I really saw the gaps in the market of where we're now investing in Arua, which is in SMEs. We estimate there's 150 billion SME funding gap in Nigeria and Ghana alone, but also in the gender funding gap as well, where at the time there was less than 10 funds on the whole continent that had successfully raised capital that were female-led and female-founded. And at the same time, there was less than 2% of capital going to female entrepreneurs. So in June 2019, I spun out of that firm to set up Arua Capital. And the vision was really simple. It was to showcase the untapped potential of women on the continent across each level of the ecosystem. So as capital allocators, because we think that there is a very natural competitive advantage to invest in women when women are the one writing the checks, but also as women as consumers and women as managers and leaders within organizations. So with Aurora Capital, we set out to be one of the very few women-owned and managed funds, and to the glory of God, we now have 2 funds under management, and we've proven our investment strategy. It's not just me. There's a whole team. There's now 11 of us, all based here in Lagos, and we're glad that we've won multiple awards. We're one of the few African funds that have been listed by Impact Assets as one of the 50 emerging impact managers in the world, both last year and this year. IAF thankfully named us as the Impact Investor of the Year a couple of years ago, and we've gotten a number of awards from other institutions. I always like to show this slide because I think it gives perspective in terms of the ecosystem, where we're placed in the ecosystem. We're not a traditional VC fund. We're also not a large PE fund. So we're really addressing what I believe is really the missing middle of where capital needs to flow to SMEs. So we're investing in businesses that may be too late for VC funds or not techy enough for VC funds, but they're too small for a number of the private equity funds that are in the continent. So we're looking to do deals of between $1 to $3 million. And a lot of the companies that come to us tell us that the VC funds tell them that they're too late, they're too mature, or they're not techy enough, and the private equity funds tell them they're too small. So we really see this as where most of the funding for SMEs is needed, because you don't have a lot of companies that can raise 20 million at once, but you have a lot of companies that can raise 1 to 2 million. So that's really the gap that we're addressing. We have a rigorous criteria, so I guess every stage of the ecosystem has what they want to kind of look for. We want to invest in businesses that have at least a 2-year operating track record. They have to have a minimum of at least $500,000 in revenue, or about 800 million or so naira in revenues. We're typically the first institutional equity investor, but we have a very, very sole focus on Nigeria and Ghana. So we believe that for the investments that we want to make, we have to have proximity to these companies so that we can add the value that we believe we can add to these companies. So 80% of our funds are invested in Nigeria, but we can also opportunistically invest 20% in Ghana as well. This just talks about the sectors that we're investing in. We want to invest in the basic needs that the rapidly growing and urbanizing population in Africa, Nigeria and Ghana would need over the next 30 years. So it's money, health, essential goods like food, and access to power. And with Fund 2, about 30% of our Fund 2 allocation will be going into clean energy, with everything that we've seen in Nigeria, where fuel prices, electricity prices have gone up by about 3x in the last 18 months. We're seeing a lot of interesting companies that are innovating around the transition to clean energy, both for individuals and corporates. So that's also something that we're investing in, and we've seen that on a fund level, as we think about our portfolio construction, it enables our fund to be more non-cyclical and defensible as well for financial performance. So we took some return statistics from PitchBook for 2019 vintages, and we're very proud that our current fund returns are above global benchmarks. So again, we're proving that this gender lens investing strategy has a business case. It's not something that is just for charity. It's not something that is pink and fluffy. We're actually showcasing the returns through our fund as well. And we also care about impact. So what we're really trying to showcase with our gender lens investing strategy is that you can have above global benchmarks financial returns, but because of the role that women play within society, you can also have very tangible impact metrics. So across our 13 companies today, we're supporting over 205,000 direct and indirect jobs. 70% of our portfolio is female-led and female-founded. 70% of our employees in our companies are under the age of 35, so we're also accelerating youth employment. And also, we're creating what we call value chain prosperity. So for the female smallholder farmer in our agribusiness, or the female POS agent in our financial services business, or the market woman that's using our solar products, how are we actually adding to their bottom line? And in 2024, we created close to $150 million of value chain revenue and income for our value chain participants in our companies as well. So the three kind of key pillars that we think about from an impact perspective is job creation, both direct and indirect, gender equality through the value chain of the company, from the farm, from the management team to the farmer, and also value chain prosperity across the entire value chain of the business as well. We're an intentional gender lens fund, so 100% of our portfolio would meet at least 1-2x challenge criteria. And I'm glad to say that a lot of our portfolio meet more than one. So we are very intentional. We're putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to gender lens, because we actually think it gives us a competitive advantage for returns and impact as well. Women represent an untapped investment case. I'm hoping that a number of people in this room know that by now. But women leaders, gender diverse boards, it drives better profitability, it reduces risk. So we're really glad to just really showcase this, because we have data from BCG, IFC. We want to get the data points for the continent. So that's what we're doing through our funds as well. And because of the role that women play in families, women are reinvesting 90% of their income into healthcare and into education for their children. So there's just a natural intersection between returns and impact when you invest in women, especially in Africa, where we have the highest rate of female entrepreneurship in the world. We've seen impressive top-line growth, about 22x revenue growth in our portfolio companies. We don't think that that is a coincidence when we have 70% of our portfolio being female-led and female-owned. And how do we de-risk? Currency risk is on everyone's mind. We make sure that we invest in proven management teams. We make sure we invest in diversified business models that also have export or generating USD revenues. Import substitution is another thing that we also are very bullish on, investing in local manufacturers that are adding value locally. So through a number of these things, we're able to de-risk and from a portfolio construction level, make sure that we are hedged. How do we add value to companies? So we sit on the boards of these companies. We're actively involved in governance. We're actively involved in operations. Being here in Nigeria, being in Lagos, we want to have that proximity to our founders, because I think to invest in this segment, you really have to do a lot of the capacity building that we've spoken about in their finance function, helping them with business development, helping them with capital raising. We're very actively involved in that as well. We don't do this alone. We leverage a lot of partnerships. MasterCard Foundation have a great technical assistance facility for all of our companies that we're able to leverage on as well. So what have we proven with Fund 1 as I wrap up? We've proven that we can back strong management teams. We can provide them with capital that they can't get elsewhere, and we're able to institutionalize them. We've proven that we can have high returns and high impact. We've proven that we're pioneering this gender lens investment space, especially in that early stage growth equity segment. We've proven additionality. Over half of our businesses have gone on to raise larger pools of capital from private equity funds and strategic investors. We've proven partial exits. We've been able to realize income from about 7 of our portfolio companies. And we've also proven that we can attract capital from blue chip institutional investors. So where are we now? So we are raising our Fund 2. It's hopefully going to be a $50 to $60 million fund. We're hoping to get to a final close before the end of this year. We've already raised about $35 million. And yeah, we're excited to continue to showcase the untapped potential of women on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Ms. Adesua Okumbo-Rhodes, founding partner and CEO, Arua Capital Management. And boy, it's been an impactful journey. All right, next up for the Impact Fund Showcase is the managing partner and CEO, Verod Capital, and that is Mr. Danladi Verheyen. Please put your hands together for Mr. Danladi Verheyen for Impact Fund Showcase.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon, right? Yeah. Pleasure to be here. So I lead a group of very passionate vectors of change for Nigeria and for West Africa. The firm's called Verod Capital. I have a presentation, but I actually will not go through a presentation if that's okay with you. I'd rather just speak and leave some time for Q&A at the end of the session with everybody else. So we started out in 2008. And yes, today our tagline is investing for profit, impact for good. And but the truth is, we really just thought of ourselves as good citizens. And that was it. We wanted to set up an investment firm that invested in the best companies in West Africa, could grow, could scale, could create jobs, but be very, very good citizens to our people, to our communities, to our environment. That's just who we were, and that's what we're trying to do. The other way I like to think about it is we were capitalists with a heart, right? I'm saying this because I want to talk you through sort of our impact journey. We don't consider ourselves impact investors today. We don't know that much about the technical terms. We only printed our first first impact report 2 years ago, right? We've been investing for 17 years. But as we think back, in 2014, 13, I think, thereabouts, we were the first PE firm in our region to sign up to UNPRI, right? Not because of any reason aside from the fact that it was all about responsible investing. We just thought it was the right thing to do. In 2015, without knowing anything whatsoever, we signed up to the Paris Accord for Climate Change, COP22. It was in Marrakesh, I think, was signed in December 2015. This was far before when climate became a big sort of topic, before there was lots of capital going into climate. And we really didn't know what we were going to do after signing up signing up for Paris Accord and the Paris Accord. But we knew that every December we had this form to fill out where we actually had to talk about what we'd done in our portfolio companies to try and reduce emissions. So we invested in Green Spring Schools, for instance. We tried to get them to start using wooden straws a long time ago, right, instead of plastic straws. We're trying to reduce diesel usage in a lot of our companies. So there are a number of things like that we did without any sort of future plan in mind, just because we thought we were good citizens and that's what was important for us in our firm. We ended up investing in a company called Daystar Power, which provided power, solar power for mostly bank branches, sort of C&I, so for all corporates and industrials, which we ended up selling to Shell a couple years ago with a pretty healthy return, right? Again, we were not climate-focused investors. We just thought it was a great deal that had very good impact. It was about 3 years ago in our DFI, so we had, most of our investors are DFIs. One of our DFIs, we had one of the ESG specialists in a DFI company who could always come down to Nigeria, look through our portfolio, and was always hyper impressed with what we did. We had a fruit juice business in northern Nigeria that manufactured fresh fruit juice. This individual came down and he told us, you have the biggest organic farm in the country. You should start marketing an organic product. This individual worked for FMO. And he started going around some of the hotels in Lagos saying, you should really buy this product by Verod's portfolio company. Again, it was not our focus, but it was the right thing to do to give people healthy products. So we created this impact report, supported by our LPs and pushed by our LPs. And it was from that impact report 2 years ago, one of them said, hey, look, you've done a lot on the gender side. We said, oh, wow, we'd actually never codified this. They said, why don't you sign up for the 2X challenge, 2X Global? We realized we'd invested in Emzor Pharmaceuticals with Mrs. Okoli, Union Trustees, Mrs. Aikbola, MedPlus with Mrs. Bakare, excuse me, Mrs. Koiki, Green Springs, the Odunlami family, Rainbow. And again, it was not because we were a gender lens investor. They were just the best entrepreneurs. We thought we could work with them. We thought it'd be fantastic to try and back them. We gave them capital, and the businesses just blossomed. And so we ended up being the first firm in the world, the first private equity firm in the world, to be awarded a PE best in class by 2x global, right? And this was just done last year. So again, and I think this has been our story where we just want to be good citizens. We have an investment in Ghana called DTRT. It's called Do the Right Thing. It's the largest apparel manufacturing company. No need to go through the slides, it's fine. I've jumped everywhere, so there's no point. You can just go back. That's okay, yeah. DTRT, Do the Right Thing, it's an apparel manufacturing company in Ghana. We have 5,000 employees right now. These are mostly young girls sewing apparel for export markets, right? These are individuals who are earning twice minimum wages. This is an industry where globally is known for labor rights abuses. Yet, when the German Minister of International Development, the World Bank President, Nancy Pelosi, John Lewis, may his soul rest in peace, when they're in Accra, they go to our factory, right? So we have all these young women, mostly young women, but 70% out of 5,000 employees, right? High ceilings, LED lights, ergonomic chairs. It does not look like what you associate with an apparel manufacturing firm. Yet it makes money. Revenues have grown 20% since we invested in 2019. It's all export-based. We think from 5,000 workers with the right policies, we can create an apparel hub for 500,000 workers in that region, right? Because it just makes sense to, if you look at it, shipping from the port of Tema to the east coast of the US, where hundreds of billions of dollars of apparel goes through, right, takes 7-9 days. If you're shipping apparel from Shanghai, Bangladesh, it's 30 days transshipment to LA, 5 days across the east coast of the US, right? So there's a big strategic advantage there. We grow cotton in Benin and Togo. We export that to China. They turn it into yarn. That yarn comes back to Accra. It's sewn into clothes. It's exported to the US. Very inefficient, right? Now, but we need to start somewhere, right? Statement said early on. And we've employed 5,000. We're trying to do more, right? By the way, I'm one of those who are guilty of not financing SMEs, so let me apologize. We're not in that middle. Arua, thank you very much for filling that space. We write slightly larger checks. So for instance, we back MedPlus, but we still think the impact is still really there. So let's talk about MedPlus, for instance. When we back MedPlus, MedPlus is Nigeria's largest pharmaceutical retailer. When we backed MedPlus in 2022, they had 65 stores. Today, MedPlus has 147 stores. So it took 28 and a half years to get to 65. Today, 147, right? This is just putting oxygen behind an incredible entrepreneur. Just really grown this business. Now, what's the impact? It's job creation. It's economic development, right? But it's also access to clean and healthy drugs. We know that infant mortality in this country, actually, if you define it as the probability a kid will live to 10 years old, it's about 10% of our kids in Nigeria don't make it to 10 years old. That's 50 times higher than Finland or Sweden. Maternal mortality is 29% of the world in this country, Nigeria, right? And we're 2-3% of global population. Those are horrific stats. There are many reasons for that. One of that is just the amount of fake drugs. We don't have great data. It's perhaps 30% of drugs out there are fake, 50% of drugs out there are fake. A young kid has malaria. They're being given chalk instead of real drugs. So that's the gap that MedPlus fills. MedPlus should have 1,000 stores, right? More than that. We've acquired another pharmaceutical retailer in Ghana. The plan is to grow them as well, merge the two entities, and just continue to grow and expand really quickly. Those are two examples. There are many examples in our portfolio. And again, I think so it all just comes right, but I'm just trying to explain how we've sort of grown organically and kind of invest with our hearts. And I think if we all do whatever we're doing in our spaces, so sometimes our spaces do not necessarily overlap. Sometimes people may feel there's a better use of someone's time or resources, whatever it may be. But I think if we all sort of do what we do best and what we're passionate about, the change we seek will come, right? Thank you.
Let's keep the applause going for another 5 seconds. That was a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Danladi Verheyen, Managing Partner and CEO of Verad Capital. Again, another beautiful initiative. And I like that words are backed with efforts here, so they're walking the talk. Finally, last but not the least, on the Impact Fund Showcase, I'd like to welcome upstage the COO Alethea Capital, Miss Yewande Adewusi. Please put your hands together for Miss Yewande Adewusi, COO Alethea Capital.
I'm tall and this is high as well. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's so great to hear from my colleagues in the industry what we're trying to do to galvanize growth in Nigeria. Without investing in SMEs, where's the country going, really? And it's nice not for us to be investing in the real sector as well, because everybody's talking tech, 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 and we're like, okay, how are we going to eat? So it's great to see, to pioneer gender lens investing. We are the largest gender lens fund in sub-Saharan Africa at $102 million assets under management. And we just celebrated our 5 years of being a 2X flagship fund. So we've been around for a minute. So let me see if this is going to work. Okay. Oops, have I spoiled the thing? All right, so yes, we have a couple. I'm going to run through because I know time's far spent. But in terms of our pioneer status, we were one of the first to look at the fintech space. We're one of the first institutional investors in Paga, which is one of the oldest fintechs in Nigeria, and we're proud to be with them. And based on our clean energy fund that we did in 2012, we were galvanizing, putting funds into microfinance institutions to support the investment in clean energy solutions. So you can imagine 2012, it's cool now, 2012, people throwing you out of the room in terms of what are you talking about. So in terms of investing in clean energy stoves, that is what that fund was about, giving microfinance banks the credit, the funds for credit to on-lend to people investing in that. And that led on to us being the team to help design what is now all on the Shell Foundation project that is running now. And finally, like I said earlier, we partnered with IDF Capital in South Africa to launch the IDF fund. So the IDF fund, I'll start with that because it really makes me excited all the time. So we've invested, that whole thesis is investing in access to essential services and trying to fill the gap that we know is $48 billion access to funds for female-led businesses. That's the focus. Intentionally put capital in the hands of gender smart businesses. So I always like to say gender smart because sometimes people meet me and say, you invested in WEMI. But the gender smart definition is female owned, majority of females in management. You are producing goods and services women consume, or a lot of women in the value chain. Hence investing in a WEMI. They're making diapers. Diapers, last time I checked, the main utilization person of diapers is women. So I think that's why we invested in them. But we have a lot of other companies that just seeing the growth and the confidence when you support. And I speak to your point in terms of sometimes it is daunting. Being an entrepreneur is daunting in and of itself. We can all agree. So what we have done in terms of the form filling and the ESG work, like confession everybody, I'm the phony in the room. I am an operator in a fund. So when my colleagues, I came from a fund and my former Oga, Danladi and co are here, they would send me ESG messages in terms of filling something 11 o'clock at night. And I had a human being, a little person, that I would just say, oh yeah, deal with whatever they're sending you. But now that I'm on this side, and at that time it did seem like that. It literally seemed like, what are these people tasking me with now, right? But when you make it relevant, it's a bottom line impact, then people will fill it without objection. First of all, we've also helped with technical assistance. So some of our money goes to technical assistance to support you to understand how do you report energy emissions. You wake up and say, oh, report your energy emissions. How do I do that? So we also support with technical assistance for that. And what you find when it's relevant, devaluation and cost of energy through, deregulation of power cost. You didn't have to beg any of our portcos to ask, how do we do energy transition? They came to meet us. Before it was like, do you want to do energy transition? And they're like, you want to, with all the things I have to do, you want me to talk about energy transition? Do you want to do exporting to other markets? With all the things I'm trying to do, the local market, you're talking about export. Devaluation came, slapped everybody. Energy costs came, slapped everybody. Do you think I had a queue or I didn't have a queue? Yes, raise your hand if you think we had a queue in terms of, can you give us support to do this work? Queue came. And now we have, will be a video at the end of this to show the impact. 60% of your energy costs reducing just because you got a CNG gas generator. I don't know about you. 100% transitioning from diesel to solar-powered initiatives. One of our coaches, she would tell us, my only issue is praying I can afford my power cost. So now that she's done the energy transition, it's not a long story for her. So you've got to make it relevant. I think that's what we're all doing. I think my colleague from Sahel Capital is saying, you just have to make it relevant. It can't be about a tick box exercise like it felt when I was on the other side of the street. But now that it is relevant and it hits my bottom line, we don't have any delayed reporting from our portcos because they're doing it because it makes sense. So moving on, and then we had, like I mentioned, the other funds we've had in the past. Mintu Fund really deals with technology, inclusively leveraging technology. So in that fund, we invested a lot of fintechs and a lot of agri-techs and that sort of thing. And it's amazing. We have a company in Ghana, Complete Farmer, just by aggregating the farmers' produce, connecting them to international markets, the farmers went from earning, look at our new problem. So we've gone from $100 a month to $4,000 a month worth of revenue that they're earning. We now have a problem that the bank accounts they have are now not adequate enough because they were on the basic tier 1. So that's the issue. Isn't that a good problem to have though? But see the wealth creation by what we're doing in this space. So this is just a timeline of what we've done. I think I've spoken to most of this. And impact. We're always looking at direct jobs, indirect jobs. And like everybody says, that return, it is a tough one because it's hard to beat the public sector bonds. I was talking to someone last night, he was like, oh, what's my return? And I mentioned 20%, he just looks at me. It's like, why would I do that for 7 years? But so we need these new structures that we're speaking to galvanize that capital in, because this, just looking at it on the surface, the other instruments you could invest in apart from private equity and VC that will have guaranteed returns with less perceived risk and less stress, to be honest with you. So when we're looking at these blended capital structures, that's what we need to be looking at. Who can de-risk the definitely commercial focused investor, and who can say, just give me my capital back, and then we move on, right? So in terms of our impact across sectors, like we said, with this intentionality on reduced emissions, you have some of our portfolio companies have reduced their emissions by 50, and we only started monitoring last year because one of our DFIs that invested in us gave us the tools. I turned around, they asked me about energy emissions and whatnot, and I said, please, how do you want me to do this? I don't even understand it. So they now taught us and then came in country to teach our portfolio companies as well. Waste management with Real Fruit, the byproduct of her food processing is now used for fertilizer and things like that. And we have smallholder farmers. That's a really big area in our portfolio companies that are in the agribusiness sector. Technology, we invested in SeamFix, so digital identity. Straight there, 100 people that can now access financial services because they have digital identity. That's over 100 million people that we've touched in that company. Logistics, we have Max Mobility, that everybody might remember the story when they were kicked out of Lagos, but be that as it may, they're back and they're in Ibadan, where they have their e-mobility. They're now transitioning from petrol trikes and bikes to EVs. And it was amazing to watch a battery swap when they just drove in. They do power a lot of the Glovo delivery food bikes that are branded. And it was interesting to just watch that immediate exchange. And the guy was like, it's easy, ma. I just use, and the cost of, it's nothing, right? Because they just have to swap the battery. There's no cost of fuel for them. And going techie allows Max to monitor their bikes and trikes. So, and healthcare, we're looking at a couple of investments in that space, low-income solutions for healthcare, as we have recently invested in an e-waste recycling company called Hinkley. So we're trying to do it all. Access to capital for female entrepreneurs, energy transition, treating the climate initiatives, and also digital transformation. And I like to tell people our digital transformation is so simple. We're not doing anything sexy, sorry. Sometimes it's as simple as putting an ERP in a business to just make them more efficient, to track their supply chain and whatnot easier. So that's how we're looking at it. This is our team, very excited, our SLT team. We have probably an additional 20 staff, but this is our SLT led by Tukumbo Ishmael, myself, my colleague Moyo, Oti, and Dobra. And we are so passionate about the impact investing space and investing with a gender lens. That's all we think about. How can we do this more efficiently in where we're coming in? I've come in from definitely, when they come with the investment lens, I just look at it, would that work in reality from a business perspective, from about what do we need to do on a value creation side? And we're very much hand-holding in that space because we find that giving the money alone isn't enough. I spend half of my time on the phone with banks half of the time trying to make sure, why are you delaying on giving them their funds? They've done everything, including give you their heart, to get this money, and you're still having an issue giving it to them. So this is what we do. And in terms of sales and distribution, getting access to market, international market space, we're doing that as well. So I'm going to fly through. We have quite a few companies that we're excited about, but I'm just going to give a run through of a couple, and then we'll end with a video from one of our portfolio companies. So Omni Retail is a company I'm really excited about. They're using digital technology to connect the wholesalers, the FMCGs, to the small retailers and shops. So to know exactly how much stock do you have in that shop so that you don't oversupply. They're also creating hubs where the wholesalers can put their products, and it's easier for the small retailers to go and collect stock from there in a micro retailing situation. And they've also got embedded finance where they're giving loans to these retailers so that they can buy more. And you're seeing the velocity of the trade there, wealth creation in terms of how much they're selling, and most importantly, the FMCGs know where their products are. There's more tracking. And now they're moving into other markets. They're in Ivory Coast now and Benin Republic. I think it is one of the other French-speaking companies. But you can see the impact, right? 145,000 active retailers, 4,500 retailers with credit, and they've given loans of 11.7 million. So you can see the impact. Having access to credit, access to market, it all just ties in. Sultry, I'm going to leave for a video, but you mustn't have a favorite child, do you? Did I say that out loud, people? But one of my favorites. They're all my favorites, to be honest. But what I like is the power. Someone mentioned, I think it was Adesha mentioned, that you're investing in the founder. This is a founder that when I went up to her store, up to her factory, in the middle of nowhere, is saying, the conveyor belt broke down. And you know what they did? Because they believe in the business, they had to deliver on a consignment. They created a human conveyor belt, moving the cassava on things stacked. And I said, how did you get them to do this? I told them that if we don't deliver on this consignment, how do we all get paid? Literally, the buy-in. She's supporting her community, education sponsorships to the staff of the community. Her power solution that you'll watch the video at the end of this is actually she's got too much power. So she's now sharing that with the local community and is saying. So you can just see what we're all doing here as PE and VC investors is that it's not just about the company. It's about the impact on the communities in which these companies operate, right? So that's what we're doing here. I think I spoke to Max when I was talking just now, and I spoke about WEMI in terms of the products they're creating and they have 80 million customers across ECOWAS, and that speaks to the point that I think Dan Ladi made in terms of FX. We can't see Francophone as the other market. It is the market. It is the market. We need to make sure we make it easier to trade across borders. The AFCTA conversation cannot be in theory. I need to transact where I send money. EcoBank can have 53 countries in which it operates, and I still cannot transfer between countries. I mean, let's get real here, right? It's easier for me to transfer to America than transfer to Benin Republic, and definitely transporting goods. We need to make it easier. So that's something we need to, on the policy front, Etimore, that we need to look at. Are we really making it easier to trade between the countries? Because we're saying look away from Europe and everywhere, but it's actually easier to trade there in some cases. Real fruit. Food waste. That's the problem she's solving in terms of processing dried fruits into dried goods, fruits and services, so dried mangoes, the desiccated coconut that's not just used for our cool breakfast with our granola, but also in other products. Like she's the largest supplier of dried desiccated coconut to NASCO. So you can see she's a small SME, but she's supplying huge companies. The same thing with Saltree. She's the largest supplier of sorbitol and cassava flour to Unilever in the market in West Africa. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So Spark Meters is one of our energy, and they provide meters and solutions to make sure, and their biggest thing for me is finding out where the energy is being lost, the tapping, the stealing of the energy, so that the discos can see where do they have a problem. Forget about the meters, because the government keeps coming in and out with the meter situation in terms of are we supplying, are we not supplying, but what they are doing is letting the discos know where is your largest sale, where are you losing energy. And that's what they're doing with their solution. So the Amplify Fund, very quickly, is our fund that we're raising for now. It's 200 million that we're trying to raise. And based on our learnings from the Clean Energy Fund, from Guam DC, from the Ubuntu Fund, and from AIF, we are now focusing and zoning in on gender as our base. You have to have a gender piece, but we're now looking at the intersection of climate, energy transition, energy resilience, and digital transformation. Not that you have to have all, but it would be great if you had all three, but gender is a must, and then one of the other two. So that's what we're doing there. And again, we're just trying to scale the barriers that SMEs are facing. Once we do that, we will see growth. We've all seen, Dan Laddie's mentioned it, Desh has mentioned it, when we're intentional about focusing on growth and wealth creation, through this access to capital and other supporting tools, like we mentioned, you can't just give the capital and move. TA is required, and then all of us thinking in this fund, I've never worked so hard on blended finance, and I'm not a finance person, but I'm getting it, because you will not get, I know Oguchi put his head down and said, you'll not get the PFAs to come in if they're not de-risked. Forget it. They're not, there's easier ways to earn money, like I mentioned. So we'll have to really work together in an association, PEVCA and whatnot, to look at how do we draw this capital in using it's not the right, but we must test and learn what is going to be the formula to draw in this catalytic capital to help support investment in Africa, because it is easier to invest in LATAM and India. That's what they'll tell you when you're having the discussions. They've returned better and whatnot. And we also need to learn, is this 5 to 7 model really working? I don't know if it is. I'm new to the sector, but I don't think it is. We need more time in Africa because our macros keep slapping us. So that's where I'll stop here. And I will ask the team if they could beam up the video. Can't find where they are, but yeah. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me.
My name is Oluyemisi Ironloye. I'm the founder CEO of Saltree International Company Limited. About 20 years ago, I was still working at a company and we're into the production of glucose from cassava. And I saw farmers bring their produce from 300-kilometer radius. Half of the time, the produce is bad. Because of bad road, trucks break down. And by the time they bring their produce, half of it is bad, and they will only be paid based on what they deliver. I saw the pain in the eyes of the women and the men that bring this produce. And I told myself, if I have the opportunity to create my own business, I will want to do it differently. I would rather want to bring the factory close to the farmers and alleviate the suffering of farmers, what they go through in bringing produce over a long distance to processing plant. That was where the inspiration came from. Our core values are very simple. One of it is team building. We try to ensure that we work as a team and make staff feel very confident working together like a family. 2, we respect our customers, both the farmer and the buyer to us and everyone that do business with us. We try to treat them well. It's part of our core value to treat our customers very right. We've quite achieved a number of milestones. We were able to build a 20 ton per day, making and giving a 7,000 metric tons per annum food grade starch factory in 2012. By 2015, we were able to build an expansion, 7,000 metric ton per annum, making a total of 14,000 metric tons starch production facility. We're able to move from 17 farmers. Today we have about 10,000 farmers that cultivate raw material for our facility. So we virtually just increase farmers as we increase facility. Basically today we have a total of about 35,000 metric tons of products ranging from starch to flour to glucose to sorbitol, and then even our waste converted to animal feed. So we actually started with just 2 staff, a farm manager and an admin manager. Today I think we're around 350 staff. So we have made frantic effort to increase the number of female employees. After the injection of fund by Alitia, we were around 38 to 40% in terms of female to male ratio on the workforce. But today we've been able to increase to about 48%. Sultry International is located in the rural environment. We created a technical workshop where we take the unskilled workers in, train them, and they became skilled in some certain parts of our operations. These have helped us to, 1, employ people from the community, 2, reduce our costs in some way. We've also been able to reduce costs by ensuring that we do backward integration. We're presently looking at expanding into different markets, especially out of Nigeria. We're looking at Europe, we're looking at the America and UK and Canada. We've made 1 or 2 major inroads, and we're still opening more doors for our products to be able to go out. Sultry International is very intentional about impacting its community. We are intentional about helping farmers and the community we live in. So the community around us today, they have power. We've been able to give them boreholes, and we also empower them in training to increase their farms year in, year out, and increasing the financial capability of the farmers. Our collaboration with Alitia have been that of growth. We were able to inject additional equity. Proud to Alitia coming, the business of 100% a family business. Alitia coming in diluted their shares, and I like it because we wanted to grow and wanted to go far. They've been able to strengthen our board, strengthen our accounting system, more than ever help us to see why we should increase more female in our operations. We are able to have a second opinion on some ideas that have helped us to be more strengthened and bigger, as it were. My advice to young female entrepreneurs would be keep your eyes sharp on your goal while you start with what you have. Challenges will come, keep pressing, using your mistakes as learning points. In no time, you get them, and you'll be celebrated as well.
Come on, you can do better than that. Let's try that again and resound. Really, really great work. And something you've done about this, please. Thank you. Really, really great work that Alethea Capital is doing. And thank you to Ms. Yewande Adewusi, CEO at Alethea Capital, for the presentation. All right, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, can we work on this, please? Before we take the closing remarks, I'd like for us to listen quickly to these few announcements. Now, right after the closing remark, we'll be having the brunch and the networking session, and the team is already going around sharing the vouchers, so you will get your lunch voucher. You will be having lunch at the restaurant, so you're getting your lunch voucher. So the lunch will be at the restaurant. And then right after the lunch, we'll be having the first leg of the site visits today. I said first leg because there is a second leg tomorrow, and I'll be telling you more about that after the closing remark. But for today, we'll be visiting some SMEs to see what they're doing, and I'm sure you can see that on your program. If you haven't checked it, you see the codes to scan on the table, so you can scan that. We'll be checking the Afia Care Nigeria, which invests, of course, in healthcare assets with a vision to make healthcare accessible and affordable. So we'll be going to Afia Care right after lunch, and then after Afia Care, we'll also take a detour to J.K. Randall Center for Yoruba Culture and History. J.K. Randall Center for Yoruba Culture and History. So these are the two places that we'll be visiting today for the first leg of the site visit. I will tell you more about the second leg of the site visit after the closing remark, but I would also like to mention that there is a code that will be displayed on the screen shortly, and then it would also be shared on your tables. Now, we have seen your reaction physically. We've seen that you've enjoyed yourself immensely, at the program, but we want you to put your feelings into words. So we want to get your feedback, right? So these codes will be placed on your table. Do well to scan them and just drop your feedback about the program, about how it's been impactful, and it's an impactful program. So please do well to drop your feedback. Scan the code. They will drop it on your tables. Do well to scan the code and drop your feedback. I'll be back with the announcement for the second leg of the site visit, but in the meantime, we would now be taking the closing remark. And to give us the closing remark is the COO, Impact Investors Foundation, none other than Miss Chizoba Ada Emmanuel Awakesian. Please, a round of applause as she comes forward to give the closing remark. Keep clapping. She's not here yet. You can do better.
Distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, and friends of the ecosystem. What a powerful and truly enlightening event this has been. On behalf of all of us at the Impact Investors Foundation and the broader Africa Impact Investing Group, it is my absolute pleasure to deliver these closing remarks and express my heartfelt appreciation to every one of you here who has joined us today for your presence, insights, perspectives, and unwavering commitment to advancing the cause of impact investing, not just here in Nigeria, but across the entire continent of Africa. Today we gathered under a powerful vision, transforming systems and redefining impact for real change in Africa. And I truly believe that following the conversations we've shared in this room today, we have taken an important step in the right direction. This high-level roundtable has given us more than just a snapshot. It has provided us with a holistic view of strategies, innovations, bold ideas shaping Nigeria's impact investing ecosystem. From the warm welcome and the powerful goodwill messages to the deeply insightful fireside chats with Miss Elizabeth Boggs Davidson, so graciously moderated by the incomparable Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, to the dynamic, energizing panel discussions which focused on local traction, policy and regulation, transparency and reporting, and ecosystem collaboration. Our conversations today have underscored one powerful truth. This is a defining moment for impact investing in Nigeria. We've heard about transformative work being championed by local fund managers, Alethea, Verod, Aruwa Capital, Kuramo Capital, Sahel. We've explored frameworks for transparency, celebrated regulatory strides that can open new doors for SME financing, and applauded Nigeria's leadership as the first country in Africa to adopt the ISSB impact disclosure standards. These are not just achievements, they're also signals of readiness. Readiness to lead, readiness to collaborate, readiness to scale solutions that cites your lessons and bold pathways you're forging from your vantage points as capital allocators, entrepreneurs, and ecosystem builders. You've enriched our understanding. Our partners are GSG Impact, the Impact Investing Ghana, the the Africa Impact Investing Group, Riser Fund, Kuramo Capital, Alethea Capital, and every partner who has continued to walk with us through this journey. Thank you all for your unwavering support. I'll close with a simple call to action. Let us all not leave this room only inspired by thought. Let us be inspired indeed. Let us continue the conversations, forge partnerships, and deliver on commitments we've made to our communities, to our sponsors, and most importantly, to make impact. Finally, I warmly invite each of you to continue to journey with us. Join us at the Africa Impact Summit in Accra from June 11th to 13th. Be a part of the Gender Impact Investment Summit, July 16th, and mark your calendars in November for the 8th annual convening on impact. Thank you. Let's keep moving forward together. Let's keep investing in Nigeria. Let's keep investing in Africa. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chizoba Ada Emmanuel. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Chizoba Ada Emmanuel, Awakasian, COO, Impact Investors Foundation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time to go for brunch and, of course, to network. But then again, I would like to reiterate some announcements that I had made earlier. In the meantime, I would like to remind you that the code to scan to give your responses has been dropped on your table. So please do well. I think only 20 persons have responded. So please do well to respond to the code. We want to get your feedback. We want to know what you think. Very quickly, there'll be photo ops. So before you go, we would like to have the NABI board, the CEO GSG, as well as the permanent secretary have the photographs right now. So it will be happening on stage. So please, if we can quickly take the photographs. Can we clear the stage, please? Photographers, please come forward. We'll be having the photographs. First up, we'll have the NABI board and the permanent secretary with the CEO GSG, of course. And then the speakers, please get ready. Right after that, you'll be joining them on stage as well. Can we have everyone on stage? The NABI board, the permanent secretary. Okay, IIF board members, please join them on stage. IIF board members. Okay. IIF board members, please join them on stage now.
I'm sorry. Please let's hold to join the speakers. Please, the speakers to join, and also the Kuramo team and Alitia.
So we can stay downstage.
Let's stay downstage and then have
we
a
can
have.
stay downstage.
No, madam. Yeah, you stay downstage so they will be behind you. Yeah.
So can we have the speakers, please?
Yeah, no, yeah, join. All the speakers and the board members along with the CEO. All right. Just one more picture with Madam. So with the CEO of GSG and Mr. Wushika and IF team, the IF team members. Please, IF team members, let's come out for the pictures. CEO, you're part of IF team.
IIF team members, please join the photo ops. IIF team members, please do all to join the photo op. All right, once again, kindly remember that the feedback code has been dropped on your table, so please do all to scan them and drop your feedback. We want to get your feedback before you leave for lunch. And then just to remind you that the site visits today to some SMEs to see what they're doing will be right after lunch. We'll be visiting the Afia Care, and right after that we'll take a detour to J.K. Randall Center for Yoruba Culture and History. And I did mention that I'll be telling you about the second leg of the site visit. Now, the second leg is tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So it promises to be more exciting than today. So if you're interested, which I hope you would be, at 8 a.m. the rendezvous point is right here at 4 Point, and you'll be conveyed there to the different sites. The sites to be visited tomorrow are Salfa Energy and SKLD Factory. It promises to be exciting. These are other SMEs that you would like to see what they're doing. Salfa Energy and SKLD Factory. So tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the rendezvous point will be right here, and it promises to be as exciting, if not more exciting. So please do well to I'm sure that you would want to be interested in going for the site visit tomorrow, so please do well to converge here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for the second leg of the site visit. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, the exclusive roundtable on impact investing comes to a close. My name is Blessings Mosugu, and it's been an absolute pleasure hosting this event. We can now go have lunch and network. I'm sure we all have vouchers, so please do well to network, and then right after the site visits. Thank you so much.